This guy is completely lost as he wakes up in a totally strange place. Minato has absolutely no clue what the hell is going on around him. Staring into the mirror, he sees an unfamiliar face with pitch-black hair and wonders where the hell his signature silver hair went. Before Minato can even process his confusion, a team of doctors and nurses suddenly file into his room. After checking him over, the doctor is shocked to find that all the injuries from his recent car crash have completely healed. They healed up as if by holy magic. But what the hell is a car crash anyway? Confused, Minato turns to ask the doctor if his mana is fully depleted, but the doctor has absolutely no clue what this patient is babbling about. When he mentions fighting monsters during that cataclysmic disaster, the doctor and nurses are left even more bewildered. They probably think, did this kid stay in the hospital so long he lost his mind? The doctor asks, can you tell me your name and what year it is? He answers, Ichikami Minato, and it should be around the year 1970, right? The doctor feels a massive headache coming on, thinking this kid has some serious brain damage. He says, your name is Kusanagi Minato, and the current year is 2022. Now it is Minato's turn to freak out. I am Kusanagi Minato, and this is the year 2022? These two do not seem to be lying. That television is insanely thin and sharp, and the calendar on the desk clearly reads 2022. Plus, he has never seen that tiny device the nurse is scrolling through. Yep, this is definitely the future, and things are about to get very interesting. An old soul in a brand new era. If I do not know a damn thing about this world, how am I supposed to survive? The doctor explains that the cataclysm he mentioned is ancient history from 50 years ago, and it is long gone now. Monsters still exist, but they are few and far between. The world has finally returned to its peaceful state. If that is the case, then no matter how hard this reality is to swallow, he should probably thank the heavens first. And now, he has to accept that Ichikami Minato from 1970 sacrificed his life to save the world, only to reincarnate into the body of Kusanagi Minato. Even though absolutely nobody knows how such a crazy feat was possible. A few weeks later, Minato is finally discharged. Using the original owner's memories, he heads back to his apartment. Kusanagi Minato's parents died when he was just a kid, and he has been living off their inheritance ever since. Flopping onto the bed, Minato starts to think. He does not really believe in reincarnation, so this spectacular second chance of his must be the work of some god. Going through Kusanagi's documents, Minato finds out that the kid was attending the Kamui Magic Academy. Back in Minato's day, there was no such thing as a magic school, so this is actually pretty exciting. Suddenly, a weird noise comes from his backpack. He picks up the phone to see a call from someone named Tadano. Having no clue how to use this thing, Minato just tosses it aside and ignores it completely. The screen flashes with a barrage of texts from Tadano. Heard you got out of the hospital. Get your butt to school right now. I am completely broke. Early the next morning, Minato somehow manages to find his way to school. He is practically a full-grown adult, old enough to be these kids' uncle. So being back in school makes him feel a little nervous. Going back to school sounds great and all, but Minato immediately starts judging the place. A guy screams at the top of his lungs, firing a pathetic little ember at a wooden dummy. Minato scans the area with his sharp eyes. Everyone here has nothing but weak, pathetic mana. He facepalms in pure disappointment, unable to believe the modern-day mages are this incredibly weak. Compared to when Minato was just a complete beginner, these kids do not even have a tenth of his power. Minato walks in with a disappointed face, completely ignoring the countless eyes staring his way. But once he steps into the classroom, his mood instantly brightens. Sitting at a school desk makes him feel like he is back in the good old days, and he cannot help but feel excited. Before Minato can even figure out if the original owner had any friends, a gang of punks shows up. A loud stomp rattles the floor as a booming voice roars from behind him. You bastard, are you ignoring my texts? You are just a nobody from the Kusanagi family. How dare you ignore me? Minato responds with total calmness. Who even are you guys? The red-haired punk glares at him, rushes forward, and kicks Minato while screaming at the top of his lungs. How the hell do you not remember the great Tadano, you powerless piece of trash? Minato finally connects the dots and remembers the name Tadano from his phone. Oh right, so are you my friend? Jun smirks and reaches his hand out saying, finally remember me, you idiot. Do you even know what being a friend means? Minato immediately grabs Jun's hand in a death grip, saying, well, friends are supposed to help each other out, right? A shiver runs down Jun's spine as he shakes off Minato's grip. He grabs Minato by the collar like he wants to eat him alive, snarling, where is your money? Hand it over right now. Your dead parents left you a ton of cash, right? Minato sighs. It finally clicks that Kusanagi Minato did not have any friends. He was just a victim of bullying. Jun puffs up like a pufferfish, getting so ticked off by Minato's words that he is ready to throw hands. Right at that moment, the classroom door swings open, and a sweet, melodic voice rings out. Good morning. A gorgeous girl with blue hair walks in, practically radiating charm with her bright face, perfect figure, and beautiful legs. Just one look is enough to leave Jun utterly entranced, almost drooling right onto Minato's face. Not wanting to look bad in front of his goddess, he backs down, mutters a few final threats, and stomps away. And as it turns out, today's first class is history. The professor was lecturing about how the Supreme Mage, Ichikami Minato, sacrificed his life to end that horrific catastrophe. In the classroom, everyone was dozing off during history class, especially with the professor's droning, lullaby-like voice. Back when monsters swarmed the entire world, pushing humanity to the absolute brink of extinction. But the pioneer of magic at the time, the Supreme Mage Ichikami Minato, refused to give up. And after that came a series of historic events that everyone knew by heart. The professor then asked the class if anyone knew exactly who Ichikami Minato was. Mizuha, a blue-haired girl, quickly stood up to answer. He was the sole survivor of the first great calamity. He was also the very first mage, and the sole reason Kamui Magic Academy was founded. As she spoke, Mizuha's eyes sparkled with deep admiration for her absolute idol, Minato. The professor confirmed her answer was absolutely correct. Minato was indeed the first human to ever wield magic. This magic academy was built with the sole purpose of training countless mages to be just like Ichikami Minato back then. Minato was the greatest mage in human history. The professor even emphasized that this would definitely be on the upcoming exam. Meanwhile, Minato had his face buried on his desk, praying for the professor to stop because every single cell in his body was dying of pure embarrassment. Minato's violent trembling left his classmates completely baffled, while he was just sitting there, deeply regretting ever setting foot in this place. He definitely didn't want to listen to someone praise him for an entire hour. But then again, now that the world was at peace, it seemed the newer generation of mages had grown incredibly weak. Minato stared blankly out the window at the clear blue sky. How long had it been since he last felt this kind of peace? Lost in thought, he didn't realize time was passing until the professor dismissed the class, reminding them that tomorrow would be their magic evaluation test. Jun took the chance to sneak up on Minato and mock him, saying, "Did you hear that? The magic evaluation is tomorrow. Man, I can't wait to watch you make a complete fool of yourself out there." Minato just gave him a deadpan look of pure exhaustion. Did this idiot have nothing better to do than run his mouth? Minato just wanted to get out of there. Seeing Minato stand up to leave, Jun targeted his parents next. "Your folks don't have any magic either, do they? Oh, wait, you're just a pathetic orphan, aren't you? My bad, ha ha ha." The gang burst into laughter, pushing Minato's buttons way too far. Even though the parents Jun was insulting belonged to Kusanagi Minato and not his past self, this was still a matter of a man's pride. "Did your parents forget to teach you basic manners?" Minato replied calmly, but that single line was enough to make Jun puff up in absolute rage. "What did you say, you magicless loser? Don't you dare put me on your level." Jun instantly summoned a magic circle. Its intense energy turned the entire room a fiery red. The other students looked at each other in panic, whispering, "Is he actually going to use magic inside the classroom?" Jun launched a massive fireball straight at Minato, aiming to kill. Yet, Minato stood there completely unfazed, even as everyone else scrambled away in terror. "Watch out!" Mizuha yelled, desperately rushing toward Minato. But a massive explosion erupted, engulfing the entire classroom in blinding heat. Mizuha couldn't reach him in time. She could only glare at Jun for abusing his magic just to show off, completely ignoring the fact that he could have seriously hurt someone. Getting yelled at by the class goddess made Jun snap. "Hey, that loser started it. It's not my fault." A few seconds later, the flames died down, leaving nothing but a thick cloud of gray smoke. As the smoke slowly cleared, a figure emerged from the haze. Minato stood there with one hand in his pocket and his bag in the other, completely untouched. He casually looked at them and scratched his head, leaving them wondering if he was actually praising or mocking Jun. Jun gasped, looking like he'd just seen a ghost. How was he not even scratched after taking that hit head-on? To Minato, a simple level 1 spell like that was easily blocked by a basic magic barrier, not even requiring him to use real magic. Minato had been holding back because he saw June as just an immature brat, but it seemed this kid needed a serious reality check. Staring at the terrifying expression on Minato's face, the three bullies instinctively huddled together in sheer terror. A brilliant, powerful blue flame suddenly erupted from Minato, its light instantly engulfing the entire room. Everyone in the room was completely paralyzed. They had no idea what kind of monstrous entity they were facing. Minato slowly walked toward June, who was now shivering like he was freezing in the dead of winter. As Minato reached his hand out, his eyes were completely lifeless. June's face twisted in terror, his mouth wide open, unable to let out a single scream. What was that noise? Did someone just use magic in here? A teacher suddenly burst through the door, attracted by the explosion June had caused. Minato pulled his hand back, as the teacher demanded to know what was going on. Minato let out a quiet sigh, put on his most innocent face, and replied, "Nothing happened here, sir. Someone outside must have accidentally misdirected their spell." But when the teacher pointed out that no magic clubs were active on the grounds right now, Minato quickly deflected, suggesting that someone was probably just showing off, since mages do love to flaunt their skills. "Then where is this smoke coming from?" the teacher asked, smelling the burnt air. Minato quickly claimed it drifted in from outside. Surprisingly, the teacher fell for it, knowing Minato wasn't the type to lie, but before leaving, the professor gave his students one last warning, telling them he would find the culprit no matter what. "Go back to your seats, everyone." Minato cheerfully waved goodbye to the professor, thinking to himself that he'd probably have to fake a crime scene to hush this whole thing up. After the professor left, a suffocating silence filled the room. Jun spun around and stormed off, gritting his teeth and cursing Minato in his head. As for Minato, he was also deep in thought. Even if they were just students, how could they possibly stand a chance against monsters with this little power? Even though the natural disasters were over, monsters were still roaming around. So, Minato decided to scout the area and see what was going on. That night, in Old Shibuya, a desolate wasteland of ruins that had yet to be rebuilt, Minato used a magic circle to fly through the sky, landing on top of an old building to look around. He sped up, but couldn't sense any monsters nearby. Everything looked completely ruined, but it seemed like the police had already cleaned up the area. Suddenly, Minato sensed a monster's presence close by, and there were even signs of a human. He immediately rushed toward the source. At that moment, a girl was trembling on the ground, staring up at a terrifying two-headed beast. Its mouth was drooling, having starved for years. In that split second of life or death, Minato arrived just in time. The monster had gotten incredibly close, but it suddenly roared in sheer agony. Minato had conjured countless sharp spikes from the ground, skewering its body. Just like that, he easily took down a massive beast, several times his size. Minato looked back at the girl on the ground. The badge on her uniform showed she was from the magic police. Not wanting to get too involved, Minato simply told her to be more careful next time. Before she could even say thank you, Minato flew off, vanishing as if he had never been there. Once the police officer finally regained her composure, she realized she had no idea who her savior was. He seemed like a high-tier mage, but she noticed that he didn't chant any spells at all. Meanwhile, Minato glided through the sky as if skating on water. Covering his face had definitely been the right call. Since he was a soul possessing Kusanagi Minato's body, he couldn't afford to stand out too much. But today, Minato was disappointed yet again. A magic police officer had almost been killed by a weak, trashy monster like that. The standards of the police force had really hit rock bottom. Minato could confidently say that humanity nowadays couldn't even defeat a low-level mob. It wasn't just the students and the police. It seemed like mages in this era had gotten a lot weaker compared to the past. But Minato wasn't too upset. In fact, he was actually glad, because it meant his power was still useful. He would use his magic to clear out the nearby monsters. He couldn't let them harm the innocent people living here. The next day, just as expected, the students had their magic levels measured. In front of them was a massive, clunky machine. It could measure both their total magic capacity and their elemental attribute. These were the two most important stats for anyone who wanted to become a professional mage in the future. Minato was completely speechless. How had magic taken such a massive step backward? Put the students aside, but if even the teachers couldn't sense a student's magic level without a machine, that was just pathetic. Sensing magic was the absolute foundation of spellcasting, after all. Did you know that? Yuika suddenly struck up a conversation with Minato. Do you have a second? Her talking to him made the whole class whisper and gossip. Yuika mentioned that this was the first time they were having a proper conversation. She reintroduced herself as the second daughter of the prestigious Mizuha magic family. I'm Mizuha Yuika. Once again, Minato was left completely dazed. What on earth was a magic noble? Yuika was shocked that Minato had no idea. The Mizuha family was one of the 4 great families leading all mages. Minato didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Back in his day, there was no such thing, and he had never even heard of the name Mizuha. What's more, Yuika's magic capacity wasn't even that high. For a famous family in the magic world, having this little magic was honestly pathetic. Meanwhile, Yuika couldn't understand why Minato was acting like this. She had gone out of her way to talk to him first, yet he didn't seem grateful at all. As for June, he was gritting his teeth in jealousy nearby, fuming that Yuika had approached Minato first. Minato scratched his head, playing along with Yuika. So, what does a powerful noble lady like you want with a guy like me? Yuika seriously wanted to punch Minato in the face, but as a noble, she had to maintain her elegance. This display of elegance made Minato lose his patience. It turned out Yuika had approached him because yesterday, Minato was completely unharmed after taking June's full-on attack. There had to be a reason for that. But the moment Yuika got 3 words out, the professor announced that they were about to begin the test. Minato was thrilled, glad to have a perfect excuse to get away from this annoying girl. Yuika was frustrated, but didn't stay mad, knowing she would get to see Minato's real power during the test anyway. Up next was June, walking up with a smug, overly confident look on his face, practically oozing arrogance. He unleashed a burst of magic, making the machine glow brightly. Soon enough, the number on the screen stopped at 1,000. June began hooting like a chimpanzee, shouting, "I'm so freaking awesome! I'm even stronger than before." Minato stood there, deep in thought. If a level like that scored 1,000, then the grading standard hadn't changed at all in 50 years. Up next was Yuika, looking just as confident as June. The moment she lightly touched the machine, the number soared to 2,000 for her water attribute. The professor's jaw dropped in awe, and he showered them both with praise. "Your mana is truly at the top of this year's class. I have no doubt you two will become outstanding mages." The entire class erupted over these 2 rising stars. Only Minato couldn't bring himself to smile. Yuika was at the very top with only 2,000 mana. Compared to real amateurs, it wasn't even that much higher. Yuika glanced over at Minato, wondering if he felt humiliated seeing her results. Minato tried his best to ignore her smug, challenging gaze. This girl was seriously such a pain. Next up was Minato. The whole class knew he was a straight-A student, but when it came to magic, he was always dead last. June still looked down on him, thinking he had absolutely zero talent, even though just yesterday he was so terrified of Minato that he almost wet himself. Meanwhile, Yuika watched his every step with intense curiosity. She was absolutely convinced he could never match her. Minato wasn't sure what to do. In his past life, standing too far above everyone else had made him feel pretty lonely. Maybe this time, he should hold back and lay low a bit. But then again, thinking about that jerk and that annoying girl talking trash behind his back made him lose all interest in playing nice. Minato placed his hand on the crystal and unleashed his massive pool of mana. He was going all out, assuming this cheap piece of junk could even handle his full power. Minato's mana erupted, surging right out of the classroom and even alerting students in the neighboring buildings. Yuika's eyes went wide, completely clueless as to what was happening. The numbers on the screen kept climbing relentlessly. The testing stone became so overloaded with mana that it started leaking raw energy directly into the air. A blinding flash illuminated the room, followed by a deafening explosion. Razor-sharp shards of stone flew everywhere, moving fast enough to easily kill someone. Minato quickly cast a barrier, blocking the flying debris so no one would get hurt. He had barely even tried for a few seconds, and this pathetic machine couldn't even handle it. Besides, none of these kids could even comprehend the sheer scale of his mana anyway. Could these toddlers really become actual mages? The panicked professor frantically checked on everyone to make sure no one was injured. He even thought Minato was incredibly lucky to be standing at the very center of the blast and come out without a single scratch. This is the first time in my life I've ever seen a testing device explode. Perhaps it was already defective before the test? But because of this, we won't be able to determine your mana levels and attribute, Kusanagi. Minato secretly wondered why that even mattered. As it turned out, the academy was dividing the class into groups for a practical training session, but they didn't know which group to assign Minato to. Ultimately, the professor decided to place Minato in June's group. June glanced at his two sidekicks with a devious grin and replied, "Of course, Professor. We'd love to have him." The naive professor felt completely relieved, handing Minato over to June. As June walked past Minato, he tried to put on a cheap, villainous smirk to intimidate him. "I'm looking forward to it too, Professor." The location for their practical training turned out to be the ruins of old Shibuya. Because monsters still infested the ruins of this area, Shibuya was currently a completely abandoned wasteland. Mages and the police regularly patrolled the perimeter to keep the monsters contained, and academy students were brought in to help secure the area. Since more than half of the beasts had already been cleared out by professional mages, it was relatively safe. Minato, however, hadn't expected to have a field trip on his schedule. I guess it was a decent way for students to reluctantly gain real-world experience, killing a few weak monsters in groups. Minato had actually visited this place just last night, but something felt incredibly off. He was absolutely certain he had wiped out every single beast in the area, yet he could still sense a few lingering signatures. There were no signs of a recent disaster nearby, so how on earth were they still spawning? His classmates were even placing bets on who would rack up the most kills. Minato couldn't help but feel a little worried for these clueless, carefree kids. The moment the professor announced the start of the exercise, June shoved Minato against a wall, wearing his arrogant, condescending look. "Hey, you, stay right here and don't get in our way. I'm being extremely generous right now, so don't even think about crying or begging for help, got it?" Minato calmly brushed the dust off his sleeve. "If you don't like me, you could always just ignore me." Seeing his logic get picked apart, June's temper instantly flared up. "Don't you dare talk to me like we're equals, you low-life loser. Why would someone like Mizuha even look at a piece of garbage like you?" Minato stared back at him blankly. Was this psycho seriously starting a fight with him over some girl? Suddenly, everything clicked. Minato asked, "Oh, wait, do you actually have a crush on Mizuha?" June's eyes practically popped out of his head in absolute fury, but Minato was already zoning him out. He could feel something dangerous rapidly approaching. June prepared to cast his magic again, with his two sidekicks backing him up. Minato warned them to stop, but June only assumed he was begging for mercy. Minato calmly pointed behind the bully. "Just look behind you." June snarled back. "You think I'm going to fall for a pathetic, childish trick like that?" A massive, dark shadow suddenly loomed over them, forcing June to instinctively look back. A giant, two-horned beast was standing right there. The three bullies instantly huddled together, their lips trembling in sheer terror. What? How is that thing even here? Why is there a demon soldier in a place like this? Facing a real monster, these three tough guys turned out to be nothing but cowardly weaklings. His two sidekicks begged June to do something. Terrified as he was, his arrogance still took over. "Eat this, you bastard." June unleashed a stream of fire, engulfing the demon soldier in flames. Watching the beast stand motionless in the fire, he grinned, thinking he had won. Ha! That was a piece of cake. But of course, once the flames cleared, the demon soldier did not have a single scratch on its body. Minato was not surprised at all. How could a basic, Tier 1 spell take down a demon soldier anyway? For now, Minato just stood back to enjoy the show. The demon soldier slowly marched toward them, scaring June so badly that he collapsed flat on his butt. With tears welling up in his eyes, his teeth chattered so hard he could not utter a single word, and his pants were completely soaked because he forgot his diaper today. The demon soldier lunged at June, but stopped dead in its tracks the moment it locked eyes with Minato. A flood of bloody memories of its slaughtered allies flashed through its mind. The demon soldier scrambled backward in terror. Minato took a leisurely step forward. It was obvious that even a lowly demon soldier knew exactly who was the real monster here. Yes, it could sense the massive, overwhelming mana radiating from Minato. Its arms trembling with fear, the demon soldier roared and summoned several magic circles. Minato simply held out his hand, summoning his own magic circle instantly without chanting a single word. How can you possibly beat that thing with Tier 1 magic? We are all going to die. The punks behind him whimpered in sheer terror. Right then, the demon soldier unleashed a Tier 2 stonewall spell. Massive boulders hurtled straight toward them, forcing June to squeeze his eyes shut, too terrified to watch. Minato smirked and cast his Tier 1 fire arrow. A massive fire tornado erupted from his hand, and just looking at it, you knew it would easily swallow the demon soldier's pathetic little rocks. Sure enough, the boulders were instantly incinerated, followed by the demon soldier itself. A massive explosion erupted, generating a violent gust of wind that sent Minato's coat fluttering dramatically. Jun finally opened his eyes, utterly bewildered, wondering what the hell had just happened. Did Minato really just take down that demon soldier and save his life? Meanwhile, Minato walked over to retrieve the demon soldier's mana crystal. Why on earth was there one here in Shibuya? He had hunted down and wiped out every single one of them just yesterday, yet here they were, appearing again. Unless this was an omen of an impending catastrophe. The situation was shaping up to be far worse than Minato had anticipated. Recalling those agonizing memories of death and destruction, he could not help but shudder. But even if that catastrophe struck again, he was determined to save everyone this time. Meanwhile, Jun's two lackeys stared at each other in disbelief. Did he really just take down a demon soldier? Is that guy really the same Kusanagi we used to know? Overwhelmed with frustration, Jun slammed his fist against the wall to vent his rage. How could he ever show his face again if Yuika found out about this? Little did he know, Yuika was already hiding behind a nearby rock, having witnessed the entire pathetic scene of Jun wetting his pants. Rewinding a few minutes, in a different corner of the area, other students were locked in combat with some magic beasts. Since they were only low-tier beasts, Yuika easily wiped them out using simple, Tier 1 magic. The students watching from the sidelines cheered enthusiastically, saying, "Wow, that was amazing, as expected of Mizuha." Hearing their praises, Yuika let out a helpless sigh. They were already wide-eyed over something so basic. These commoners really did not know how to do anything besides flatter people. But then again, she was a certified genius, so what could she expect? Just then, however, Yuika spotted Jun and his gang dragging Minato toward a secluded corner. Remembering how Minato was always getting bullied, Yuika frowned, falling silent. Finally, she turned to the others and said, "I will leave the rest to you guys." She quickly ran after them. There was no way she could just ignore this. Slipping into a blind spot, Yuika quietly kept an eye on the group. But the moment the demon soldier appeared, Yuika's face instantly paled with sheer panic. There was no way that gang could ever defeat a monster like that. Panic surged through her, and Yuika clenched her fists tightly. She had to do something. After all, she was a proud member of the Mizuha family. Making up her mind, Yuika rushed out from her hiding spot and screamed, "Everyone, run! Get out of here right now!" Before she could even finish her sentence, a blinding beam of magic surged right past her, leaving her completely stunned. With a deafening boom, an explosion erupted right in front of her, filling the air with thick smoke and fiery debris. As the smoke and dust slowly settled, the scene before her finally became clear. Yuika gasped as she saw Minato standing there, completely unfazed, her brow furrowed in utter shock. Was that really Minato's magic? She remembered him being incredibly timid, without a single shred of magical talent. But right now, he felt like a completely different person. What's more, she had not heard Minato chant at all. Did he just cast a spell without chanting? On top of that, he easily took down a high-level demon soldier using nothing but a Tier 1 spell. A demon's power is determined by the number of mana crystals it possesses. This is also the fundamental rule that establishes the hierarchy among them. Normal magic beasts are Tier 6, while demon soldiers are Tier 5, one rank higher. Above them are Tier 4 demon commanders, Tier 3 demon generals, and so on. Tier 2 is reserved for the demon kings, and sitting at the very top of the hierarchy are the demon lords. The specific tier required to deal damage to each type of demon is absolute. Every modern mage knows this basic fact. You need at least a Tier 3 spell to defeat a demon soldier. So how on earth did Minato pull it off with just a Tier 1 spell? Yuika was completely lost in confusion. While she stood there bewildered, Minato slowly began walking toward her hiding spot. Startled, Yuika quickly shrank back further into the shadows, but she immediately caught herself. Why on earth was she hiding from him anyway? Once Minato had walked a safe distance away, Yuika peeked her head out to watch him go. Unfortunately for her, Minato had already noticed. He smirked and spoke up. "Sneaking around and spying on people seems to be a real hobby of yours, huh?" Yuika gasped in surprise, her brow furrowing as she retorted, "How did you even know I was here?" Shrugging indifferently, Minato casually replied, "If you call yourself a mage, it would be weirder not to notice." Seeing her reaction, Minato knew the answer. He let out a helpless sigh and asked, "You guys can't even sense magic, can you?" With that, he turned around and walked away, leaving Yuika standing there utterly confused. By the time she snapped out of it, she had to run to catch up with him. She hurriedly called out, "Wait a minute, what is going on? Explain yourself." But unfortunately, he had already vanished into thin air. There was no one left in front of her. The person she was looking for was actually standing on the rooftop of a nearby building. Watching her search for him, Minato couldn't help but sigh. He scanned the area and whispered to himself, "Guess I should check one more time just to be safe." With that, Minato used his magic to scan the area. There were no demon soldiers left. However, there were still quite a few magic beasts crawling around. This situation was starting to get on his nerves. If even June, who was supposedly an elite student, was wetting his pants like that, the other students were definitely going to struggle. Minato frowned in deep thought. Should he lend them a hand? His barrier would easily cover the entire area around Gesibia House. No sooner said than done, Minato quickly channeled magic into both of his hands. In the blink of an eye, two flows of magic energy manifested in the air. Then they shot forward. Before long, they had completely enveloped Gesibia House. Seeing the streaks of magic energy in the sky, June and his group were instantly shocked, completely clueless about what it was, and Yuika was no exception. She frowned and muttered, "Is that magic? Multi-purpose magic?" At the same time, in another corner, a pack of magic beasts had surrounded 2 academy students. Their numbers were so overwhelming that the students were paralyzed with fear. Just then, a magic beast lunged straight at a pink-haired girl. The girl's face was pale with terror, and she was completely frozen, unable to do a single thing. At that critical, life-and-death moment, a beam of magic energy suddenly shot out, instantly tearing the attacking beast's body to shreds. Having just escaped death, the pink-haired girl was so terrified that her legs turned to jelly, and she collapsed to the ground. The boy rushed over, asking anxiously, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" Meanwhile, up on the building's rooftop, Minato looked down and nodded in satisfaction. Nice. Wiping them out like this is actually pretty entertaining, but he quickly realized a problem with his magic, and cold sweat began to break out on his forehead. His magic hadn't just killed the beasts, it had literally torn them to pieces. In the blink of an eye, shredded pieces of the beasts' corpses were scattered all over the place. Seeing this, Minato couldn't help but let out a helpless sigh. Did he overdo it a bit? He had ended up wiping out almost all of them. How was the practical class supposed to continue now? He thought to himself, I really need to hold back next time. After a brief moment of silence, Minato used magic to jump down. He scanned the surroundings for a long time before finally nodding in satisfaction. Everything around here should be fine now. Once he confirmed everything was secure, Minato found a hidden spot to land. Even though he didn't need to hide his skills completely, standing out too much would be a massive headache. With that thought, he walked toward the other students. Meanwhile, the instructor was currently examining the corpses of the magic beasts. After checking for a while, he muttered in confusion, "How are there still so many magic beasts left? The entire horde should have been completely taken out by now. To take down this many with a single blow, the person who did it must be a professional mage. Furthermore, deploying countless magic bullets like this could only be non-attributed magic. He had never seen anyone capable of this before. If it weren't for this person, the situation would have gotten out of hand for the instructor long ago. Firing multiple magic bullets at once was one thing, but there were more than 6 bullets here. There was no way a student could have done this. While he was lost in thought, one of the students couldn't hold back their frustration and questioned him. Why were there still so many magic beasts left? We almost died out there, sir. This is my fault. The instructor didn't try to dodge responsibility. He bowed his head in apology. Pursing his lips, he explained, I was told the police had already cleared out the entire horde. I should have double-checked with the school. I am truly sorry for putting you all in such danger. Hearing this, the students didn't know what to say. Everyone just looked helpless and resigned. The girl who had just been saved timidly asked, Someone came to rescue us. Didn't they? The instructor shook his head slightly and replied, I don't know either. The girl sighed, I see. I just wanted to ask so I could thank them. The instructor really had no idea who it could be. It definitely wasn't the police or any professional mages. Could it have been an unlicensed mage? But there was no denying the fact that whoever it was had just saved his students. From the bottom of his heart, he was deeply grateful to this anonymous mage. Meanwhile, Minato, the very anonymous mage the instructor was thinking about, was standing in the distance, silently smiling. Now that the danger had passed, the students finally calmed down and began whispering among themselves about the incredible magic they had just witnessed. Minato glanced around at everyone. It looked like they were all okay, which brought him some peace of mind. At the same time, a pair of hostile eyes glared in his direction. It was June and his crew. It seemed these punk kids hadn't learned a single thing. Even after just barely surviving a life-or-death situation, Minato let out a helpless sigh. Nearby, Yuika was quietly observing him too. He had actually defeated a demon soldier using nothing but Tier 1 magic. Was that limitless magic from earlier his doing as well? But fire magic and non-attributed magic? She couldn't believe any student was skilled enough to cast two different elements simultaneously, let alone someone like Minato. Thinking of this, Yuika felt a wave of relief. She was probably just overthinking it. There was no way a guy like him could wield two magic types at once. The person casting that magic had to be someone else. Still, that didn't change the fact that Minato had slain a demon soldier all on his own. She couldn't help but wonder, who or what exactly was he? Minato felt her eyes on him, but he didn't give her any reaction. Right then, Jun's two sidekicks finally snapped out of their shock. One of them muttered in disbelief, "Hey, that laser-like thing earlier. Kusanagi did that, right?" The other quickly shook his head, denying it. "No way. There's just no way." But the first guy stood his ground, insisting, "But he's the one who took down the demon soldier." Hearing this, Jun's face darkened with pure rage. Gritting his teeth, he snarled, "Hey, shut the hell up before I kill you myself." Realizing they had crossed a line, the two lackeys immediately shut their mouths and didn't dare say another word. Jun's eyes flared with malice as he spat. There's no way a piece of trash like him is actually strong. He's definitely pulling some cheap tricks. Not wanting to anger him further, the two lackeys quickly agreed. "Yeah, you're right. It's super sketchy. Isn't he just a useless coward?" Satisfied with their response, Jun snorted coldly. "That bastard is definitely playing dirty. How dare he make a fool out of me? I'll expose his true colors." A little while later, the final bell rang, and school was finally over. Minato was heading home as usual when a group of students suddenly blocked his path, catching him off guard. The leader of the pack was none other than the arrogant Jun. He glared at Minato and sneered, "I've been waiting for you." Feeling completely exhausted by these annoying punks, Minato sighed. "Do you guys have selective hearing or what? Instead of going around being a massive disappointment to your parents, shouldn't you be spending your time practicing magic? It would actually be useful." This instantly set off Jun's temper. He roared furiously, "You have no right to open your mouth, you lying fraud." "A fraud?" Minato was genuinely puzzled. "What are you talking about?" Jun snorted in disgust and shouted, "Stop playing dumb. There's no way a loser like you could ever cast magic like that. You're definitely pulling some dirty tricks behind our backs." Minato stared at him blankly, his mind filled with confusion. He had absolutely no idea what kind of nonsense this idiot was spewing. Seeing his silence, Jun coldly commanded, "Come with us. I'm not letting a little rat like you escape." As he spoke, his lackeys stepped up to back him. Cowards really do love to travel in packs. Minato looked at the group of punks blocking him, gave a casual shrug, and replied dismissively, "Why would I even need to run?" Infuriated by his nonchalance, Jun snapped and yelled, "Cut the crap! Without your little magic tricks out here, you're completely helpless, aren't you?" Without wasting another second, he clenched his fist and lunged forward. Jun's fist was centimeters away from Minato's face in the blink of an eye, but Minato didn't even flinch. His lackeys immediately joined in, charging forward and throwing a flurry of punches. Jun laughed triumphantly. "Without your magic, you're absolutely nothing. Even if you beg and lick my boots, I'm not letting you off the hook. Just die, Kusanagi." His grin grew increasingly sadistic, but unfortunately for him, he couldn't even lay a single finger on Minato. Minato stood there, completely unbothered, his eyes filled with pure disdain. Their amateur attacks couldn't even scratch him. With his passive magic protecting him, they could beat him until tomorrow morning and still wouldn't leave a scratch. But honestly, these annoying pests were starting to get on his nerves. Minato figured it would be easier to just fake being beaten to get them to go away. So, he dropped to the ground, pretending their punches had actually landed. But just as he did, a sharp, commanding voice rang out. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" The bullies froze and whipped their heads around, only to find Yuika standing right behind them. Jun's face instantly paled, and his lips trembled. He panicked, terrified of making a terrible impression on Yuika. Jun quickly stammered an excuse. "We weren't doing anything. We were just playing around." Yuika let out a cold snort. "Cut the act. I can see exactly what you're doing ganging up on Kusanagi. Are you really wearing the uniform of a prestigious magic academy just to act like a bunch of brainless thugs? Have you no shame?" Hearing this, the faces of Jun's lackeys turned pale, while Jun's face twisted in pure humiliation. He gritted his teeth and glared daggers at Minato. It was all this bastard's fault that Yuika now looked at him with utter disgust. Before Jun could even process his anger, Yuika walked right past him, grabbed Minato's hand, and said, "Let's get out of here, Kusanagi." Seeing them holding hands was the ultimate insult. In that moment, Jun's fury completely boiled over. In his mind, he was already cursing 18 generations of Minato's ancestors. Seeing the look on Jun's face, his two lackeys were paralyzed with fear, not daring to step in and calm him down. Finally, Jun couldn't take it anymore and completely snapped, yelling, "Damn you, Kusanagi." Minato sighed helplessly, thinking, is this guy like superglue or what? Why can't he just let it go? Right now, Jun was absolutely furious, already summoning magic in his hands. He barked out in a rage, "You bastard, I'm going to fucking kill you." Seeing this, Yuika panicked and cried out, "Tadano, what are you doing?" But Jun had already completely lost his mind. He and his lackeys launched a simultaneous magic attack at Minato. Growing more and more anxious, Yuika screamed out a warning, "Watch out, it is dangerous." In an instant, a massive explosion erupted right in front of them, sending smoke and flames flying everywhere, forcing Yuika to shield her eyes. Thinking Minato was buried in the flames, Jun burst into a triumphant laugh. "Even if you cheat 10 more times, nothing is going to save you, kid." His two lackeys, on the other hand, were terrified, panicking and muttering, "Oh my god, this is really bad. Did we actually kill him?" Snorting coldly, Jun dismissed it, saying, "You idiots, what the hell are you scared of? We just accidentally cast some magic off campus and lost control of it. Kusanagi just happened to stand right in its path, that is all." But while he was gloating, a deep voice suddenly echoed from the midst of the smoke and dust. "You guys took this way too far." Startled, Jun whipped his head around as a figure slowly emerged from the thick smoke. Minato stood there completely unscathed, glaring at the brat in front of him before coldly speaking, "I thought you guys were just some dumb kids, so I was going to let it slide. But I guess some fools only learn when they are at death's door. It is about time I teach you guys a real lesson." Seeing this, the color completely drained from Jun's face. He shrieked in sheer panic, "You are still alive? You took all that magic head on and you are still standing?" Even Yuika, standing behind him, was completely dumbfounded, unable to process what just happened. Too lazy to explain, Minato simply spoke in a cold tone. "If this was just about me, I would not even care. But you actually dragged Yuika into this? You are truly rotten to the core, kid." Biting his lip in frustration, Jun screamed back defiantly, "You two are the ones at fault here. How dare you make a fool out of me? We will keep blasting you until nothing but your skeletons are left." As the words left his mouth, magic began to gather in his hands once again. Minato did not even flinch. He calmly snapped his fingers, summoning only a tiny fraction of his magic. Seeing the miniature magic circle floating in front of Minato, Jun laughed contemptuously. "Haha, what kind of pathetic magic is that? You are trying to stop a train with a pebble. You are dead meat this time." In an instant, they unleashed another barrage of magic at Minato, but Minato remained completely unfazed, softly whispering, "Magic drain." The moment he spoke, thick vines glowing with magical energy suddenly materialized in front of him. Like giant pythons, they slithered and twisted through the air, charging straight toward Jun and his clueless gang. Without a second thought, the vines tightly bound them, making them cry out in panic, "What the hell is this? Let me go." But before long they deflated like popped balloons, collapsing helplessly onto the ground, completely drained of all their strength. Seeing this, Minato withdrew his vines. Without anything holding them up, Jun and his cronies fell flat on their faces. Minato was slightly surprised. He had only drained a tiny bit of their magic, yet they were already knocked out cold? Well, I guess this should be enough to teach them a lesson. Witnessing this whole scene, Yuika was even more shocked than before. What kind of magic was that? What on earth just happened? Why did Jun and his friends suddenly pass out? While she was lost in thought, Minato grabbed his bag, getting ready to leave. Seeing this, Yuika quickly shouted to stop him. "Hey, wait a minute." She immediately bombarded him with questions. What kind of magic was that? What just happened? You should not be able to use magic so proficiently. Yuika kept nagging Minato, treating it like a full-blown interrogation. It was starting to get on Minato's nerves. He snorted coldly and said, "Instead of bombarding me with questions, is there not something else you should be saying first?" Yuika knew exactly what Minato meant. Stubbornly turning her head away, she muttered, "Fine, I will give you credit since you just saved me. Thank you. There, are you happy? Now answer my question. But before she could even finish her sentence, the guy had already vanished into thin air. Annoyed, Yuika stomped her foot and yelled, "Where did he disappear to this time? Seriously." By nightfall in Shibuya, the atmosphere turned incredibly eerie as a figure used magic to glide through the dark night sky as fast as the wind. Moments later, he swiftly landed on top of a skyscraper overlooking the city. This mysterious figure was none other than Minato. He was disguised, wearing his signature hoodie. Feeling a sense of unease, Minato cast a spell to scan the surrounding area. Just as he suspected, despite wiping out all the monsters earlier this afternoon, the area was already crawling with them again. Was this a bad omen? If it were just Shibuya, Minato could easily handle it alone. However, he could sense their presence spreading to other regions as well. This was probably too much for the police to handle. Even though the magic police were pretty incompetent, Minato could not just go around exterminating every single monster in Japan on his own. Minato realized he needed to come up with a solid plan, and fast. After thinking it over, Minato decided to clear out the monsters around here first. He had to be careful not to stand out. With that decided, Minato cast his magic to leap down and began taking out the magical beasts. Wild bolts of magic rained down from the sky, wiping them out in droves. Right at that moment, a drunk guy was stumbling down the street below. Completely oblivious to the danger, he didn't notice the magical beast lurking right behind him. In the blink of an eye, the beast lunged at the man. Just in the nick of time, Minato flashed in and slashed it dead, moving like a gust of wind. Feeling a sudden breeze brush past him, the drunk man turned around, but there was absolutely no one there. He figured he was just hallucinating, but in reality, Minato had already ducked out of sight. The drunk guy just kept stumbling on his way home. Only after confirming he was safe did Minato finally leave. But Minato didn't realize that someone in the distance had recorded the entire thing. The guy posted it on social media with a smug grin on his face. If this doesn't go viral, nothing will. The next morning, in the headmaster's office at the Magic Academy, another teacher was also present. He looked at the students gathered in front of him and spoke in a serious tone. We received reports that some students were seen using magic outside of school grounds. If this is true, the school will have no choice but to suspend those students. The students they were referring to were Minato and Yuika, but Jun's entire gang had been called in as well. Hearing this, Jun immediately tried to shift the blame first. "What do you mean by that, sir? We didn't use any magic. It was Kusanagi who came looking for trouble with us." Minato was completely speechless at his sheer shamelessness. The guy was lying through his teeth without even blinking. Impressive, honestly. He couldn't just stay quiet anymore. Even though he got dragged into this, he had to defend himself. But before Minato could even say a word, a loud shout rang out. "That's a lie," shocking both him and Jun's gang. The one speaking up was none other than Yuika. She furiously pointed her finger right at Jun, calling him out. Kusanagi was the one being bullied by Tadano and his friends. Tadano's side was the one that used magic first. Hearing this, the teacher frowned and asked, "So, does that mean Kusanagi used magic as well?" Yuika immediately protested. "It was self-defense. He did nothing wrong." Minato was a bit surprised. She had a strong sense of justice, not twisting a single word of the truth. But Jun's face was 8 times thicker than concrete. Even after being exposed like that, he still stubbornly denied it. "We didn't do anything wrong either." Yuika grew even more frustrated and snapped, "Oh, shut the hell up. What kind of scumbag bullies someone and then pins all the blame on them? Do you have absolutely no shame?" Jun was getting chewed out hard, but he still kept his head high and argued back. "It's Kusanagi. He doesn't belong here. I was just taking out the trash." Yuika glared at him, her face filled with pure disgust. "You're the one who doesn't belong here." Refusing to back down, Jun retorted, "I'm at the top of the class. I'm the only one who can stand on equal footing with you, not some trash like Kusanagi." Yuika couldn't stand listening to his nonsense anymore and snapped, "You're talking absolute garbage." Still refusing to yield, Jun stepped right up to Yuika and said with absolute conviction, "Open your eyes. Stop taking his side and look at me instead. Be my woman." As Jun said this, his eyes were filled with sincere hope. But unfortunately for him, Yuika couldn't care less about his sincerity. She let out a cold, dismissive snort. "Dream on, kid." In an instant, Jun froze up completely, feeling as if he had been tossed into an ice chamber. As if that wasn't enough, Yuika went on to list her reasons for rejecting him, calling him a violent bully, which made him so furious he was about to pass out. Watching this unfold, Minato couldn't help but sigh. Sure, June deserved it. But that was just brutal. Right then, the headmaster spoke up. It seems this was indeed Tadano and his friend's fault, and Kusanagi was merely defending himself. We do not tolerate those who use magic for personal grudges. You are all expelled. Hearing this, June's two lackeys panicked and quickly tried to explain, "No, please don't. We were just following June's orders." The headmaster didn't want to hear it and dismissed Minato and Yuika back to class. The two immediately agreed and left the office. Even after leaving the room, Yuika's anger hadn't faded. She kept grumbling, "That guy. It's been ages since someone ticked me off that much." Walking beside her, Minato asked curiously, "What's going to happen to them now that they're expelled?" Yuika pouted slightly and said in an indifferent tone, "They won't be able to become mages anymore." Obviously. With that, Yuika suddenly turned around and glared at Minato, saying aggressively, "And you need to stand up for yourself." Minato felt a bit helpless. He was planning to, but she had already gone and done it for him. Seeing his lack of response, Yuika suddenly became flustered. Minato frowned, thinking for a long moment before quietly speaking up. "Now that I think about it, how many times have you tried to save me now?" Back in class, when Minato was dragged into a fight, Yuika had stood up to help him. And now this time, she had actually stepped in to testify on his behalf. Thinking about it, Minato flashed a warm smile at her. "You're really kind, aren't you?" Minato's words make Yuika blush intensely, and she quickly runs off, yelling, "Oh, shut up, I'm out of here." Watching her walk away, Minato smirks, thinking about how adorable she is. Right then, he remembers something important. The original Minato Kusanagi is already dead, and he, Minato Ichikami, is the one who reincarnated into this body. Did the poor kid get bullied to death, or was it just a normal car accident? Minato has no idea. But one thing is for sure, they're going to pay for what they did. Hopefully, justice will be served. Meanwhile, two other students show up in the principal's office. Along with them, a girl's clear, melodious voice echoes, "So, a student used magic outside of school, and some bystanders got caught up in it?" The principal nods slightly and replies, "Yes, but thankfully, no civilians were harmed." The girl looks confused and asks, "Then why did you call me here, sir?" The principal calmly answers, "The student caught up in the incident was Yuika Mizuha." Hearing this, the girl freezes. After a brief silence, she finally speaks up. "I understand. Thank you for telling me." With that, she turns and leaves. The principal doesn't try to stop her. He simply asks her to give his regards to her father. Without even looking back, she calmly replies, "Don't worry, sir. My father will keep investing in the academy." The two of them quickly step out into the hallway. The boy beside her finally speaks up. If what the principal said is true, then this Kusanagi kid must be incredibly strong. The girl mutters in a low, serious voice. "Fighting multiple mages at once is almost impossible. You can't win unless there's an overwhelming difference in power. Do you think he's actually stronger than us?" They continue talking as they walk down the hall. Other students turn their heads in awe as the duo passes by their classrooms. But the two of them couldn't care less. The girl's tone suddenly turns dead serious. "First, I need to verify this student, Minato Kusanagi's abilities myself. Only then will I decide whether to withdraw my sister from this school. This girl is none other than Yuika Mizuha's older sister, Ruka, a third-year student in the Elite S class. The boy beside her is Ryuji Katsuragi, also a third-year S-class student. Hearing her words, he smiles and nods. Sounds like a plan. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, Minato is slacking off, face planted on his desk and sighing. Now that everything is settled down, he has absolutely zero motivation. Just then, the excited murmurs of the students nearby catch his attention. "Whoa, look at that. So cool. Is he a dark mage? I know him." Minato frowns in confusion. A dark mage? Aren't they supposed to be elite spellcasters? But honestly, it has nothing to do with him anyway. He just sighs in disappointment again. As Minato is busy complaining to himself, the teacher walks in from outside and calls out, "Hey, Kusanagi!" Soon after, Minato and a few other students follow the instructor to the testing room. The students who missed the previous test are going to take it now. Yuika is there too, her eyes narrowed as she watches Minato. This time, she is determined to find out his true strength. But right at that moment, her eyes widen in shock. She spots Ruka and Ryuji standing there as well. A wave of anxiety washes over Yuika. Why is my sister here? But regardless of her worries, the test begins anyway. Before long, it's Minato's turn. He stands in front of the magic measuring device, hesitant and deep in thought. Last time, I literally blew up the machine, so I'd better hold back a bit today. With that in mind, Minato channels only a tiny sliver of mana into his palm, then places his hand on the testing device. Controlling his magic to keep it at its absolute lowest level makes him break a sweat. The numbers on the device rapidly begin to climb. Soon, Minato pulls his hand away, resting his hands on his knees as he pants heavily. The instructor asks with concern, "Hey, are you all right?" Minato gently shakes his head, signaling that he's fine. The instructor looks at the final reading on the screen and says hesitantly, "Well, looks like we have our final result. Minato Kusanagi's attribute is none." Hearing this, Yuika's eyes fill with absolute disbelief. Ruka and Ryuji, on the other hand, aren't surprised at all. They seem to believe that Minato isn't actually that strong after all. But the real shock comes next. His magic power registers at a mere 100. The surrounding students immediately start whispering, "Isn't that the lowest score in our entire year?" But hey, having no measurable attribute is pretty rare, right? Hearing the whispers, Ryuji can't help but sigh. Ruka, losing her patience, immediately turns to leave. "Let's go. We're done here." As the two of them quickly walk away, mock laughter instantly breaks out. Did that simple reevaluation really tire him out that much? Well, that's what happens when you've got pathetic mana. Fearing that Minato might be discouraged, the instructor walks over and pats his shoulder to comfort him. "Don't let it get to you, Kusanagi. Your magic power doesn't define who you are. The only person who refuses to buy this result is Yuika. Something is definitely off. Minato is easily strong enough to take down demon soldiers. He should be able to use both fire and null magic. She has never even heard of anyone being able to manually suppress their own mana output. What on earth did Minato just do?" In stark contrast to everyone else's reaction, Minato is absolutely thrilled. Man, that went perfectly. Everything went exactly as planned. All he needed to do was precisely control a tiny amount of mana, and that did the trick. Whew, I am completely exhausted. Fortunately, I managed to fool everyone without a hitch. A moment later, out in the hallway, Minato walked side by side with Yuika. As they walked, he asked, "Wait, so you were at the evaluation too?" Yuika Mizuha gave a slight nod and replied, "Yeah, I was just a little curious." But before long, someone blocked their path. It was Ruka and Ryuji. Not recognizing either of them, Minato muttered in confusion, "Who are you guys?" Ruka immediately introduced herself. "I'm the eldest daughter of the Mizuha family, Ruka Mizuha, and this is Ryuji Katsuragi. We're both third-year students." Hearing this, Minato frowned in confusion, asking hesitantly, "So, what do you guys want?" Ruka scoffed, "I have absolutely no interest in you anymore." With that, she stepped right past him and walked forward. Seeing this, Yuika immediately grew anxious, her body instinctively trembling. In an instant, Ruka was standing right in front of her. She spoke coldly, "It seems you're nothing compared to those rule breakers, are you?" Yuika lowered her head, not daring to look her sister in the eye. Ruka wasn't about to let her off that easily and pressed on, "I also heard you had to be saved by some guy whose magic power barely even hit 100. Is that true?" Yuika hesitated for a moment, and only after a long pause did she whisper, "Yes, that's true." Hearing this confirmation, Ruka immediately barked, "Drop out of school, Yuika." Refusing to back down, Yuika asked in protest, "Why should I do that?" Snorting softly, Ruka said coldly, "Have you ever actually beaten me? Even just once." Yuika froze upon hearing those words. Ruka was right. Whether it was academics, sports, martial arts, or even using magic, Yuika had never once surpassed her older sister. Ruka stepped closer, cornering Yuika, and said sternly, "You're not cut out to be a mage. One of us is enough, and that's me." The more Yuika listened, the worse her face looked. She wanted to argue back, but she couldn't find the words. Ruka refused to budge, continuing to demand, "All you need to do is listen to me. Leave this place, transfer to some random school, and get on with your life." Yuika trembled slightly, her eyes welling up with tears. She clearly wanted to object, but she lacked the courage. Seeing her silence, Ruka demanded, "Do you understand me?" Yuika clenched her hands into tight fists, locked in an intense internal struggle. Eventually, she gave up and was about to agree, but before she could speak, Minato cut in. "You're being a bit too rude, don't you think?" Ruka glared at him and asked coldly, "What did you just say?" Not intimidated in the slightest, Minato replied calmly, You just keep talking without even bothering to listen to what she has to say. If that isn't rude, I don't know what is." Ruka scoffed and said coldly, "This is a private family matter. An outsider like you has no business sticking your nose in it." Minato smirked and said, "You call that a conversation? You're basically just barking orders at your little sister." This infuriated Ruka, and she yelled in anger, "What did you just say? You little brat." Minato calmly faced her and said nonchalantly, "Forcing someone to do something against their will is a major taboo. It's no different from telling someone to just throw away their dreams." Still seeing absolutely nothing wrong with her actions, Ruka scoffed. "My sister doesn't have what it takes to be a mage. She has never beaten me, not even once." Standing beside them, Yuika's face was filled with deep sorrow. Just as Ruka said, she felt like she was absolutely nothing. For a long time, she had been deluding herself into believing she was a genius who had what it took to be a mage. Yet, she had never once bested her sister. But just as Yuika was falling into despair, Minato spoke up with absolute confidence. "She will beat you." These words completely stunned Ruka, and she stared at him in utter disbelief. Even Yuika couldn't believe her ears. Ruka frowned, muttering, "Beat me?" Letting out a soft chuckle, Minato casually continued, "Well, of course, she can't do it right now." Ruka glared at him, scoffing in contempt. "At least you're realistic. Then how about a 2-on-2 mock battle in 2 weeks?" Hearing this, Minato couldn't help but ask in confusion, "A 2-on-2? Ruka immediately mocked him, "Oh, so you are scared. Just a second ago, you were talking all that big game, and now you're running with your tail between your legs?" Letting out a cold laugh, Minato shrugged and replied, "Don't be ridiculous. Count me in, upperclassman. But what about you?" With that, he glanced down at Yuika, standing right next to him. Yuika was a bit taken aback by the proposal, hesitating for a long time without giving an answer. She was caught in a deep mental struggle, wondering if she should just give up on her dream or stand up and fight for once. After a moment of silence, she finally found her answer. She declared fiercely, I'll do it too." Minato smiled with satisfaction. Then it settled. He glanced back at Ruka and smirked. "If we win, you're never to bring this up again." Ruka casually accepted and laid out her terms. "And if we win, Yuika leaves this school. I won't pull any punches. You two better get ready for a reality check." With that, she turned around and walked away. Ryuji quickly followed. But before he left, he gave them a friendly wave goodbye. A short while later, Minato and Yuika found themselves up on the academy rooftop. Suddenly, Yuika spoke up. "Kusanagi, I have a favor to ask. Please, teach me magic." Hearing those words, Minato finally let out a sigh of relief. Before this, he was actually quite curious as to why she suddenly called him to the rooftop in the first place. After thinking it over, Minato slowly said, "I'm just a weak mage with a magic level of less than 100. Are you sure you want someone like me to tutor you?" Yuika nodded silently. With a determined look, Yuika said, "I know you're hiding your real strength. You're definitely way stronger than me." Minato was a bit surprised to hear this, but Yuika kept going. "You must know a way to get stronger, which is why you told me I could beat my sister, right?" Minato let out a helpless sigh, thinking, "Man, everyone in this world is such a control freak." That was exactly why he had offered to spar with her, but he couldn't just come out and say that directly. Seeing him stay silent, Yuika immediately bowed her head and begged, "Please." With no other choice, Minato could only agree. "All right." In an instant, Yuika cheered happily. "Are you sure?" Minato nodded and gave her a warning. "But you have to do exactly as I say, and no quitting halfway, okay?" Without any hesitation, Yuika agreed. "Deal, of course I can do that." Watching her reaction, Minato couldn't help but smile, thinking, well, who could say no to a face like that? Besides, from now on, he also needed to prepare himself. Teaching a mage shouldn't be too hard, right? With that thought, Minato said, "Then let's get started today." As for our training spot, before he could even finish his sentence, Yuika shyly suggested, "How about we go to my place?" And so, that afternoon, Yuika took Minato to her home, which turned out to be a massive estate. As soon as they arrived, Minato couldn't help but gasp, "Whoa, this mansion is huge." Yuika didn't think it was a big deal, casually replying, "Well, my dad is a noble mage, so this is pretty normal." Come to think of it, this was the very first time she had ever invited a boy over. She wondered if Minato found it weird to be here. And it wasn't like she had any weird intentions or anything, but the more she thought about it, the more embarrassed she got, unable to even look Minato in the eye. Right then, Minato spoke up and suggested, "Let's get right to it, Yuika." Hearing him call her by her first name, Yuika panicked. "Why are you calling me by my first name?" Minato saw no issue with it and replied casually, "Well, your sister's name is also Mizuha. If I don't call you Yuika, how am I supposed to tell you two apart?" Only then did Yuika realize she was totally overthinking things. Seeing her reaction, Minato asked, "If you don't like it, what do you want me to call you?" Yuika shook her head slightly and replied, "No, it's fine. Just call me Yuika." Seeing no problem, Minato went ahead. "Then let's begin. First, let me ask you, what exactly is magic power?" Hearing the question, Yuika confidently replied, "That's easy. It's the energy inside our bodies and the foundation for forming magic." Without saying if she was right or wrong, Minato pressed on. "And what about incantations?" Yuika calmly replied, "They're like programs that help convert mana into magic." Minato asked yet another question. "So, can you increase your magic power?" Yuika shook her head confidently. "No way. A mage's maximum magic capacity is determined at birth, and once you reach a certain age, your magic power stops growing altogether." Having finished her answers, she smiled proudly and said, "Heh, so what do you think? My answers were absolutely perfect, right?" "You're dead wrong on all counts," Minato scoffed coldly. Yuika was instantly taken aback, staring at him in disbelief. Minato let out a helpless sigh. How can a modern mage be this clueless? What on earth happened 50 years ago? With no other choice, he patiently explained. "First of all, magic power doesn't just exist inside your body, it's all around us. Incantations are nothing more than a tool to assist your magic, and yes, you can absolutely increase your magic capacity if you actively train it." Hearing this, Yuika gasped in shock. "That's impossible. If that were true, wouldn't all magic academies be completely useless?" Shrugging indifferently, Minato replied coldly, "It doesn't matter if you believe me right now. I'm just going to teach you the 3 things I just mentioned. Sit down." Yuika listened and sat cross-legged on the floor. Minato calmly said, "I'm going to channel some magic power into you. Let me know when you feel it." Yuika asked in confusion, "Can you actually sense magic power?" Minato replied flatly, "If you can't even do that, you'll never get stronger. Now close your eyes, we're starting." With those words, Minato placed his hand on Yuika's back and began channeling magic power into her body. However, Yuika still didn't show any reaction, so Minato increased the amount of magic power he was sending in. Just as he thought she still couldn't feel a thing, Yuika suddenly cried out, "My back, it's getting hot, I feel something." Hearing this, Minato withdrew his hand and sighed. That was just a basic test of magic perception. Yuika stared at him, murmuring in confusion, "So, this is what you meant by sensing magic power?" Nodding slightly, Minato said calmly, "Yes, make sure to remember this feeling. Once you can sense it, you'll be able to recognize it and locate magic sources in nature. Make that your goal." Yuika winked and grinned. "Heh, I'm a daughter of the Mizuha family, you know. Just watch. I'll get the hang of it in no time." Minato rolled his eyes in disbelief, thinking, "Yeah, right. It took a massive dump of my mana just for you to feel a spark. It looks like Yuika seriously has zero talent for magic." A week later, still at Yuika's mansion, just as Minato predicted, she is screaming in total despair, "I can't do this." Minato is completely at a loss. It has been a whole week, and he has taught her so much, but this girl is just incredibly slow to catch on. Still, the tournament is right around the corner. Realizing this, he has no choice but to make a suggestion. "All right, I'll channel my mana into you one more time." With that, Minato places his hand on Yuika's back, letting his mana flow into her body. After a moment, Minato says, "Okay, open your eyes." Yuika does as she is told and slowly opens her eyes. In an instant, her face lights up with sheer shock. She squeals with joy, "I see it. So, this is what mana actually looks like?" Staring at the mana swirling around her hands, Yuika is mind blown. "This is insane. Am I actually seeing mana right now?" But wait, if she can see it now, she should be able to see Minato's mana too. Curiosity getting the best of her, Yuika sneaks a glance at Minato, but to her surprise, she sees absolutely nothing. Clueless to what is going on in her head, Minato praises her. "Not bad, good job." Proud of herself, Yuika smirks and says, "Piece of cake." Minato just shrugs it off and casually replies, "Well, now that you can actually sense mana, Let's move on to mana control, shall we? He instructs her to use just the right amount of mana for her spells, stripping away any useless flair and focusing solely on efficiency. He wants her to push her mana to its absolute limit. Once you completely drain your mana and recover, your total capacity will increase. Minato explains that now that she can sense mana, she can finally start maximizing her raw power. Yuika's jaw drops more and more with every word. Seeing her stunned face, Minato sighs and asks, "Is this different from the textbook stuff they teach you at school?" "Hey, you don't have to believe me if you don't want to." "No, I believe you." Before he can even finish, Yuika cuts in with absolute certainty. "I have no reason to doubt you anymore." Cracking a smile, Minato excitedly suggests, "In that case, let's move to the next phase. Take a few steps back, Yuika. It's time for some real combat." The moment the words leave his mouth, he slips off his jacket and tosses it to the ground. Yuika, pumped up and ready, fires back. "Bring it on. I've been dying to see what you're really capable of anyway." With that, she swiftly unleashes her magic, a Tier 1 water wave. A massive torrent of water surges wildly toward Minato, but with a casual flick of his hand, a defensive barrier flickers to life, completely blocking the oncoming wave. Yuka's eyes widen as she gasps. He blocked it just like that?" Minato calmly explains, "This is just a Tier 1 neutral magic shield. If you can't even crack this, you can forget about laying a finger on me." Biting her lip in frustration, Yuika forces out another spell. Ice shards rain down rapidly on Minato, but he doesn't even flinch. His barrier absorbs the impact effortlessly as he gives her a pointer. You need to keep moving while casting. Standing completely still in front of another mage is basically a death sentence. Riled up by his lecture, Yuika channels her spells again and again, but it isn't long before her mana is completely drained, leaving her collapsed on the floor. Minato walks over and sits down beside her, letting out a heavy sigh. "You're wasting way too much mana on useless movements. If you learn to properly control your flow, you won't even need to chant incantations. You can instantly cast spells as long as you've got mana left. Watch this." With a quick gesture, Minato casts a small fireball that shoots toward a straw target in front of them, barely leaving a singe mark. He calmly explains, "This represents your current magic level." Then, Minato channels a bit more mana into his palm. It's the exact same fireball, but this time, it explodes with raw power, completely vaporizing the straw target. "And this is mine." Yuika watches in awe, processing it all before asking with a puzzled look, "So, my mana is leaking and getting scattered?" Minato nods. "Spot on. You can easily cast magic without chanting, as long as you can control the flow." Yuika furrows her brows, whispering to herself, "So basically, I don't need to chant at all." "Pretty much," Minato explains. "But for now, let's start by learning how to shorten your chants. Once you've mastered your mana control, you can skip them entirely. Shortening your chants gives you a massive upper hand in a real fight. Plus, you won't be wasting precious mana on useless words anymore." Yuika frowns, putting 2 and 2 together. "So, that basically means my spells will pack way more punch." "Exactly," Minato nods. "Now, let's do it again." Yuika panics. "Wait, already?" Minato gives her a quick wink and chuckles. "Well, yeah. Otherwise, what's the point of this training? Train like your life literally depends on it." Hearing those words, a sudden wave of dread washes over Yuika. Fast forward a few hours, and she is utterly exhausted, collapsed on the grass, gasping for air. Minato looks down at her, teasingly asking, "Hey, still breathing? Because from here on out, this is all we're gonna do." When night falls, Minato goes on his usual patrol around the city, ending up in Harajuku. He casts a quick mana sweep to scan the area. Just as he suspected, this place is absolutely crawling with monsters too. "I've been wiping them out non-stop, but their numbers aren't dropping at all. What the hell is going on here?" Right at that moment, Minato senses something. In the distance, a little kid is cornered by a vicious beast. He rushes over and, without a single second of hesitation, obliterates the monster. That magic beast. Minato glanced at the kid and asked with concern, "Hey, are you okay?" But the kid didn't say a word. The boy raised his camera to take a picture of him. Unfortunately, Minato was one step ahead, using magic to vanish in an instant. Once he was in a safe spot, Minato finally breathed a sigh of relief. That kid didn't even say thank you. He just boldly took a picture instead. What is wrong with people these days? I seriously need to get a mask for next time. With that, he turned around and headed back home. The next afternoon after school, Minato and Yuika returned to the mansion. The two of them continued their training, and as usual, Yuika was the first to collapse. She lay on the ground, gasping for breath. Standing beside her, Minato couldn't help but sigh. There were only a few days left until the practice match. She was gradually improving, but she was still no match for Ruka in any area. There was no way Yuika would have a chance of winning if things kept going like this. Thinking about this, he suddenly spoke up. Sometimes, giving up is also an option, you know. Hearing this, Yuika lowered her head. But soon after, she stood right back up and muttered, I am always being compared to my sister. I can't beat her in anything. I've been forced to give up on so many things already, but magic is the one thing I refuse to let go of. Minato narrowed his eyes at her and said without hesitation, but like this, you won't stand a chance. Yuika didn't give up and suggested, then make the training harder. Smirking slightly, Minato raised an eyebrow and said, I won't be holding back. Now that's what I'm talking about, Yuika replied excitedly, refusing to throw in the towel. From then on, Minato trained her even harder. The two of them sparred continuously until Yuika was completely out of breath. A few days later, Yuika was finally able to hold her ground for a long time. Minato smiled in satisfaction and said, You passed. Hearing this, Yuika cheered happily. I finally did it. Minato also praised her. Great job, Yuika. Being praised made her incredibly proud. All her hard work had finally paid off. A few days later, the day of the practice match finally arrived. Minato and Yuika stood right outside the training arena. But the moment they walked in, the scene inside shocked them both. The arena was absolutely packed with people. The moment the reporters spotted Yuika, they rushed over, shoving microphones in her face and firing questions rapid fire. Yuika froze in utter confusion, having no idea what was going on. Minato frowned slightly and muttered to himself, just for a match between students? This really showed how much weight a noble magic bloodline held. Not only were there reporters, but tons of other students had also gathered to watch. Seeing this, Minato couldn't help but speak up. Don't you think this is a bit much? Magic battles are so rare, this feels like some massive event. But after Minato spoke, there was no reply. He turned around to look, only to see Yuika huddled there, trembling. Just then, an announcement echoed from afar. Would the two competitors please enter the arena? Yuika startled and stood up, about to rush off. Seeing that she was completely out of it, Minato quickly called out to stop her. Yuika, looking nervous and uneasy, asked in confusion, What is it? Minato looked at her with a warm smile and encouraged, You got this. Hearing those words, Yuika froze for a second, and then a smile broke across her face. Confidence slowly returned to Yuika's face as she said determinedly, Of course. With that, she took a step forward and headed onto the arena. As she walked, she couldn't help but think about how mysterious Minato was. His words continued to echo deep inside her chest. Soon, Yuika stood before Ruka. Ruka narrowed her eyes and said in a cold, serious voice, So, you didn't run away after all. Of course not, Yuika replied confidently. Letting out a light scoff, Ruka smirked with disdain. How pathetic. Do you really think you stand a chance against someone like me? With that, she raised an eyebrow and looked at Yuika with ultimate confidence, looking as though victory was already hers. Yuika didn't back down either, shouting fiercely, I am definitely going to win. Hearing this, Ruka couldn't help but click her tongue in amusement. It seems like you've made some progress over the last 2 weeks, Yuika replied, knowing all too well how powerful her sister was. The gap in their power was indeed massive, but Yuika wasn't about to give up. Just then, a loud voice announced, Let the match begin. Instantly, both Mizuha sisters took their battle stances. Yuika was the first to summon her magic. She shortened her incantation to save her mana. At the same time, Ruka didn't stand idly by. She quickly summoned her own magic as well. Watching from the sidelines, Minato couldn't help but think that Ruka clearly knew the basics of a wizard duel. Yuika was too anxious and forgot to move. Because of that, she completely lost the advantage of her quick incantation. Just as he thought, Ruka closed the distance in the blink of an eye, right in front of Yuika. Both of them unleashed Tier 1 water magic. The two surging waves of water instantly collided. But because her mana was weaker, Yuika's wave was quickly overpowered and shattered. Although she was hit by Ruka's wave of water, she managed to block it. Ruka was stunned. You actually nullified it? She was indeed getting stronger. Even Ruka couldn't help but admit. To think you've gotten this much stronger in just 2 weeks. Hearing this, Yuika immediately beamed with joy. This was the very first time her sister had ever praised her. Seeing her reaction, Ruka frowned in annoyance and snapped, "What are you so happy about?" "Huh? It was just a simple comparison. I wasn't praising you." With those words, Ruka's gaze grew even more determined. She spoke in a cold, sharp voice. "Now, I'm taking my magic up a notch." As the words left her lips, she summoned her water waves once more. Yuika didn't dare let her guard down, quickly summoning her defensive magic. In the blink of an eye, level 2 water magic materialized. It danced wildly in the air before splitting into tiny water bubbles and furiously surging toward Yuika. Yuika couldn't hold it back, and the bubbles sent her flying. Her body crashed down right at Minato's feet like a kite with its string cut. Glancing down at Yuika, Minato couldn't help but sigh. When it came to chanting speed, her opponent was simply on another level. While he was lost in thought, Ruka approached him from a distance and asked coldly, "A bit harsh, don't you think? Aren't you going to help her? You stood up for her before, didn't you?" "No need," Minato replied without a second thought, leaving Ruka staring at him in utter disbelief. Right then, Yuika struggled to her feet, though her body was still trembling uncontrollably. Ruka's jaw dropped as she gasped in disbelief. "How is this possible? I hit you with level 2 magic, so how are you still standing?" Biting her lip hard, Yuika replied with fierce determination, "I'm not giving up. Magic is all I have. Even if I lose everything else, I'll never give up." With that, Yuika summoned her magic once again. Ruka scoffed and quickly summoned her own magic to block it. In an instant, 2 waves of water magic clashed violently in midair. But before long, Yuika's strength began to fade. She kept repeating to herself over and over, "I'm going to win. I won't give up," before collapsing powerlessly onto the ground. The battle was over. Yuika had completely run out of mana. Victory went to Ruka. Shaking on the cold floor, Yuika clenched her fists tight, whispering in bitter frustration, "I couldn't do a thing. Absolutely nothing." Minato let out a quiet sigh and walked over to help Yuika up. While this was a duel of magic control, she simply lacked the raw mana pool to keep up. At that moment, Ruka spoke up coldly, "Do you get it now? That girl has 0 talent." "Kusanagi, I'm sure you think so too," Minato replied indifferently. "You're right, she doesn't have any talent. Yuika is clumsy, progresses at a snail's pace, lacks raw ability, and is even worse in real combat. But there is one thing about Yuika that Minato truly respected. She worked incredibly hard and trained like a relentless idiot." Hearing this, Yuika looked up at him in surprise. Ruka, however, just shrugged and scoffed, and look where that got her. Before she could finish, Minato cut her off coldly. "Yeah, she lost. But I happen to respect people who work as hard as Yuika does." His words brought tears to Yuika's eyes. It was the first time anyone had ever acknowledged her hard work. Ignoring her reaction, Minato continued, "Yuika is my student. I don't appreciate you talking trash about her." Hearing this made Yuika even more emotional, tears streaming down her face. Ruka scoffed with disdain. "For someone with a measly mana pool of 100, you're talking pretty big." Shrugging casually, Minato replied with absolute confidence, "And that guy with 100 mana is going to beat you." Ruka's face twisted with irritation at his arrogance. She sneered, "You sure have a big mouth. Whatever, I'm not wasting my time on someone like you." Ryuji grew excited, thrilled that it was finally his turn to step up. As Ruka brushed past him, she muttered coldly, "Make it quick." Ryuji chuckled and nodded. "You don't have to tell me twice." Meanwhile, Minato carried the injured Yuika back to her seat. He gently set her down and said calmly, "Keep your eyes on my match." Yuika nodded softly to show she understood. But right then, she realized something strange. She wasn't in any pain, and her wounds had completely healed. Oblivious to her thoughts, Minato slowly walked up onto the stage. Although he had bluffed earlier about how 100 mana was enough to take down Ryuji, he knew that if he didn't give it his all, he wouldn't stand a chance. He decided to cap his mana at exactly 100, using only chantless, non-attribute magic. He wasn't going to set up any defensive barriers either, so taking even one direct hit could put him out of commission for good. The more he thought about it, the more thrilling it became. Seeing Minato step onto the stage, Ryuji grinned eagerly and called out, "Sorry, kid, but I'm not planning to go easy on you." Minato smiled faintly and retorted, "That's fine. In that case, I'll go easy on you." Instantly, the entire arena erupted. The crowd began chanting and shouting, "Hey Ryuji, don't overdo it. Go easy on the kid." Up on the stage, Ryuji unleashed his mana. Minato estimated it to be around 8,000. To his former self, that was nothing. But right now, He was limiting himself to just 100. And just like that, the second match between Minato and Ryuji officially began. Summoning his magic, Ryuji grinned. Don't take this personally, but this one attack will show me if you're really the guy who took down those expelled students. Ryuji wanted to see if Minato could survive his full power strike, but before he could even launch his attack, a concentrated beam of mana struck him right between the eyes. Minato curled his lip in contempt. Too slow. This scene left the students in the stands completely dumbfounded. It hadn't even been 3 seconds, and it was already over? Since Ryuji was knocked out cold, the victory went to Minato, just like that. Ruka rushed over to check on Ryuji, her heart filled with shock. Did Minato really knock Ryuji unconscious with just a single blow? She hadn't even heard him chant a single spell. What on earth did he do? While Ruka was still lost in thought, Minato's mocking voice reached her ears. I wrapped it up quick, just like you wanted, senior. Watching from the sidelines, Yuika cheered happily. Awesome! He actually took him down. Ruka glared at Minato and said coldly, seems like you've got a bit of talent after all. Minato just shrugged it off with a chuckle. Just being better than you is enough. Can't you just keep your mouth shut? Ruka gritted her teeth in anger, immediately unleashing her full magic power. Minato estimated it to be only around 10,000, but it was still stronger than Ryuji's. As the two faced off, the announcer's voice rang out again. A shocking turn of events has occurred after the second match. Contestant Kusanagi's fighting style has truly caught the audience's attention. The final match will be between Minato and Ruka. Everyone is eager to see who will emerge victorious. The moment the match was declared started, Minato wasted no time and charged straight at Ruka. Ruka didn't panic either, calmly summoning her magic to counter. Minato knew very well that his current magic power was only around 100, so naturally, the spells he cast wouldn't be very strong. Because of that, unless he aimed directly for her forehead, he wouldn't be able to leave a scratch on her. Ruka also realized she shouldn't move around too much, opting to focus on defense instead. Just as Minato expected, Ruka defended herself effortlessly. She stood her ground, sending waves of water crashing toward him. Slashes of water, sharp and powerful as blades, rushed at him furiously. But what happened next left Ruka utterly shocked. Minato easily dismantled her magic, completely unscathed without a single hair out of place. Ruka stared in disbelief. He hadn't even used any magic this whole time. What on earth did this kid do? She wasn't the only one. The students in the stands were just as bewildered, whispering among themselves. Shouldn't he have been blasted by now? He didn't even get wet. What's going on? Yuika, on the other hand, wasn't surprised. She was just trying to figure out what kind of technique Minato had used to pull this off. Ruka was furious that her attack had been neutralized so easily. She was certain he was hiding some kind of trick. Gritting her teeth, she launched another assault. But this time, Minato moved. He seemed to dance through the air, effortlessly dodging the water blasts Ruka fired at him. Seeing this, Ruka's eyes widened in disbelief as she cried out, "You dodged all of my attacks without even using magic?" Watching from the sidelines, Yuika couldn't help but frown. Normally, a mage would counter with another spell. Two opposing spells would cancel each other out to some degree. Everyone knew that if you couldn't do that, getting hurt was only a matter of time. A Tier 2 spell is completely different in scale and speed compared to a Tier 1 spell. There was no way someone like him could dodge all of that completely unharmed. Ruka was convinced Minato was just a reckless fool who didn't know his own limits. As if sensing her thoughts, Minato couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle. But that's fine. As long as you can feel the magic flow, dodging these pathetic attacks is no big deal. Though, you do need a bit of grit. At that moment, Ruka began casting a Tier 3 water spell. In the blink of an eye, a wave shaped like an arrow materialized and lunged furiously at Minato. Seeing this, the crowd in the stands gasped in shock. A Tier 3 spell? If he gets hit by that, he'll be sent straight to the afterlife. With a loud bang, the water arrow exploded, splashing droplets everywhere. Exhausted, Ruka slumped to the ground with a satisfied smile, thinking, there's no way he could have blocked that. But right at that moment, a beam of magic shot from afar, stopping right in the center of her forehead. When she saw who fired it, Ruka cried out in shock. No way. How is this possible? You're completely fine. How did you dodge it? Minato replied nonchalantly. I used a spell to absorb your magic, and then simply walked right through the center of your attack. The arena fell dead silent. Ruka sat there frozen, completely unresponsive for a long moment. Just when Minato thought she wouldn't say anything, She suddenly threw her head back and laughed out loud, simply walked right through it. I see. So, I lost, huh? Naturally, the outcome was crystal clear. The victory belonged to Minato. Yuika rushed over and asked, "Are you all right?" Minato nodded. "Yeah, we're both fine. And hey, I won." Yuika smiled softly and nodded, her eyes filled with gratitude. Seeing the two of them celebrating, Ruka stood up from the ground and said flatly, "As promised, I won't bring this up ever again. You can do whatever you want." Hearing this, Minato couldn't help but sigh helplessly, still as proud as ever, huh? With that in mind, he suddenly laughed and teased. "Yuika's wounds are actually pretty shallow. You went way too easy on her, didn't you? Man, if only our match had been like that too." Hearing this, Ruka snapped back in annoyance. "Hey, that definitely wasn't the case." Minato didn't comment on that and kept talking. "Yuika has gotten way stronger in just 2 weeks. I'm sure you noticed that too, right? Stop babying her so much." At that moment, Yuika made a firm promise. "I'll definitely get stronger so you won't have to worry about me anymore, sis. I promise." Ruka narrowed her eyes, looking at the two of them. After a long pause, she finally nodded and replied, "Yeah, you're right. Thanks to this battle, the Mizuha sisters had grown much closer." Minato watched them, feeling an odd sense of warmth and happiness. Right then, dark clouds suddenly rolled across the sky, bringing with them a terrifying aura that startled Minato. He quickly looked up, his expression instantly turning dead serious. Was this abnormal magical energy a calamity? Ruka and Yuika sensed it too. Everyone's faces went pale. Meanwhile, back in the classroom, Jun's gang was rummaging through Minato's desk, throwing his stuff all over the floor. After searching for a while and finding nothing, one of Jun's lackeys grumbled, "There's nothing but books and notebooks here. This guy is seriously a model student." Jun gritted his teeth in frustration, pursing his lips as he muttered, "He has to have something on him. Otherwise, how could he use that kind of magic?" But just then, his lackey spotted something outside and gasped in shock. "What the hell is that?" Thinking they had found something, Jun quickly looked over, but what he saw absolutely terrified him. The sky outside was stained a terrifying blood red, throwing the three of them into instant panic. As if realizing something, one of the lackeys cried out in terror, "It's a calamity!" How could a calamity be happening here? Outside the arena, the reporters and students were in utter chaos. No one expected a calamity to strike the Magic Academy. Minato's face darkened. How could a calamity hit right at this moment? Don't tell me this is linked to the incident in Shinjuku. The first calamity happened there too. Was this just a coincidence, or was it planned? While he was lost in thought, magic beasts began pouring out of a rift in space. The students panicked and started fleeing. Their instructor was also there, frantically trying to calm them down. But in a moment like this, who could possibly stay calm? Just then, a powerful blast of magic shot out, obliterating the beasts that were lunging at the students. The one who saved them was none other than Minato. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Calm down." His booming voice silenced the crowd of students. Though still terrified, they stopped running and stood their ground. Minato was highly satisfied with this reaction. He scanned the crowd and instructed them. In the early stages of a calamity, only low-level monsters appear. Our best bet is to evacuate to the gym. Turning to Ruka's group, he suggested, "You guys should head there too." Hearing this, they cried out in shock. "What on earth do you think you're doing, Kusanagi?" Minato replied calmly, "I need to save the people trapped inside the buildings first." The instructor looked at him in disbelief and said worriedly, "You're going alone? You're being way too reckless." Ryuji quickly stepped in, "I'm going too. With the two of us, it should be fine, right, sir?" The instructor was still hesitating, but Ryuji raised an eyebrow and continued, "You saw what this kid can do, right?" The instructor wavered for a moment before finally nodding in agreement. "All right, but don't push yourselves too hard." Ryuji chuckled, "Come on, there's no way I'm dying here." With that, he glanced at Minato. The boy didn't say a word, only offering a casual shrug. Minato then looked over at Yuika and said, "I'm heading out then." Worry filled Yuika's eyes as she whispered, "Please, be careful." Meanwhile, Ryuji called out, "I'm taking the lead, kid. At my current speed, I'm clocking 10 meters per second. Let's see if you can keep up, Minato." But Ryuji was severely underestimating him. Minato instantly activated his magic and took off, passing Ryuji like a flash of lightning. He raised an eyebrow and teased, "See you there, senior." Ryuji's eyes widened in utter shock as he grumbled, What kind of monstrous speed is that? Hey, wait up. He quickly gave chase, but speed alone wouldn't cut it. I'm going to watch your real abilities very closely, and of course, save some people along the way. Minato couldn't care less about what Ryuji was doing. As he ran, he used his magical energy to scan the entire academy grounds. There were 58 magic users detected inside the buildings, but there might be others who can't use magic anymore. If that's the case, I'll have to thoroughly search every single floor. By now, beasts had already breached the school building, trapping students inside their classrooms. Jumping in through a window, Minato witnessed this chaos. Without a second thought, he unleashed his magic to obliterate the beasts. His magic was incredibly powerful, wiping out every beast in its path. But while Minato was focused on clearing out the classroom, another beast suddenly lunged from the side, aiming for a sneak attack. Minato acts like he has eyes in the back of his head, casually unleashing his mana to shred the beast's body to pieces. Moments later, Ryuji rushes over, frantically asking, "Hey, is everyone okay?" But by then, Minato has already wiped out every single magic beast, leaving the room piled high with their carcasses. Walking right past him, he coldly says, "I'm leaving the evacuation of the trapped students to you." Caught completely off guard, Ryuji quickly shouts, "Hey, wait, going out there alone is way too dangerous." But the kid is already long gone. He mutters in frustration, "Where did he go? Man, he's fast." Ryuji figures Minato must see him as total dead weight. But honestly, what can he even say? Maybe it's true. I mean, the kid wiped out those monsters in less than a single second. Who on earth is this guy? Of course, Minato has no idea what is going through his head. He keeps sprinting forward. If he were outside, he could easily blast them away with magic bullets, but using them in a tight enclosed space risks hurting innocent bystanders. So, he has no choice but to stick to low-level spells to pick them off one by one. But even that is more than enough. Minato easily tears through the beasts with basic magic, saving countless people along the way. While it would normally take too much time to personally escort every student to the gym, he has someone else to handle that part. And that someone is Ryuji, who has been playing catch-up this entire time. Right now, he is outside fighting off a beast, confidently shouting, "I'll take care of these monsters. Everyone else, hurry and get to the gym." But just as Ryuji says this, a sudden gasp of surprise catches him off guard. What's going on? Looking up, he sees the students enveloped in magic, gently floating down to the ground. Ryuji can only watch in stunned silence. What is Minato even doing? Who in the world is this guy, really? Looking down at Ryuji's reaction, Minato smiles. He really does care about his juniors, doesn't he? Everything should be fine. Just then, he senses something else. In a secluded corner of the building, a terrified schoolgirl is trembling with fear. Cornered by monsters, she is pressed flat against the wall, tears streaming down her face in absolute terror. With nowhere left to run, she is completely helpless and can only scream out, "Somebody, please help me." At the absolute last second, a flash of light streaks past, making her eyes widen in shock. She instantly recognizes this light. She was saved by this exact same power before. While she is still trying to process this, Minato lands gracefully from the air, asking with concern, "Are you okay?" Recognizing him, she stammers in disbelief. "Kusanagi? Were you the one who saved me?" "Well, yeah," Minato nods, offering a hand to help her up. She quickly adds, "Was that you during the practical class too?" Minato hesitates for a moment before finally admitting, "Yeah, things got a bit out of hand back then." Hearing his confession, she bows deeply to him in gratitude. "Thank you so much for saving my life twice now." Minato brushes it off with a casual smile. "Don't worry about it. It was really no big deal." Staring at the boy who has saved her life twice, she suddenly feels her heart skipping a beat. A deep blush creeps onto her cheeks. Just then, Ryuji comes running up, shouting, "Who needs saving next?" Minato looks at the girl and instructs, "Just stick close to him and you'll be safe." "I'm heading out." She tries to call out to him, but he has already vanished, leaving even Ryuji sighing in disbelief. Minato doesn't care what they think and keeps charging upstairs. There are still plenty of students cornered by monsters, and they can't afford to wait around for the police to show up. He has to take matters into his own hands. Meanwhile, inside the Prime Minister's residence, high-ranking officials have gathered in a panic over the sudden disaster at the Magic Academy. Seated at the head of the table, the Prime Minister speaks with a grim expression. A catastrophic disaster has struck the Kamui Magic Academy. The surrounding officials immediately break into anxious murmurs. "Why is this nightmare happening to us?" There hasn't been a single disaster recorded since the last one 50 years ago. What are we supposed to do now? The Prime Minister commands silence. We are doing everything we can to contact the Magic Beast Division at the City Police Department and the Noble Mages. The Ground Self-Defense Force is also on high alert. But the high-ranking officials protest in frustration. But the Defense Force mages only specialize in natural disasters. None of them have any actual experience fighting real monsters. The Prime Minister knows this all too well. This is what happens when a country gets too comfortable and forgets how to deal with real crises. At this point, they have no choice but to rely on the police force and the noble mages. The more he thinks about it, the tighter his fists clench in frustration. A tragedy like the one 50 years ago is happening all over again, but Ichikami Minato is no longer with them. Who is going to save them now? Meanwhile, a police cruiser is speeding toward the Magic Academy. The female officer behind the wheel asks in uncertainty, "Has a real disaster actually broken out?" A deep, calm male voice replies, "Yes, there's absolutely no doubt about it. Got it." The female officer panics upon hearing this and cries out, "But we have been living in peace for so many years. So, this peace was only temporary after all?" Inspector Shadu smiles as he speaks, "But it is fine. After all, that is the whole reason we are here." The female officer at the wheel, Sergeant Sanada Karin, hesitates for a moment before finally speaking up. "I will do my absolute best, sir." Right after that, the two of them quickly head toward the scene. At the same time, a helicopter appears in the sky above the Magic Academy. It is not a rescue team, though. It belongs to the media. They are broadcasting the monster invasion live to the entire country. The reporters who were already inside the academy are also being evacuated to safety. They are reporting live on the ground, while the instructors and students capable of using magic outside are desperately trying to eliminate the low-level monsters. This sudden disaster is a massive hot topic, and everyone in the country is glued to their screens. Anxiety is through the roof, and the situation is looking incredibly grim. The neighborhood surrounding the Magic Academy is also under siege by monsters. The nearby residents are in a total panic, and the situation has completely spiraled out of the government's control. Every single citizen in Japan now has their eyes glued on the Magic Academy. Everyone is waiting on the edge of their seats for updates from the media. Some are terrified because they live nearby, while others fear this disaster will turn out just like the tragedy 50 years ago. In short, the entire nation of Japan is sinking into utter chaos. Meanwhile, back at the Magic Academy, Minato is still tirelessly slaughtering monsters to rescue survivors, but the beasts keep flooding into the school in massive hordes, and Phase 2 is about to begin. With each phase, new and even more powerful monsters will emerge. What's worse, they will keep spawning endlessly no matter how many he kills, because as long as the boss is alive, the monsters will never stop coming. The boss will only show itself in the final phase, so Minato just has to hold out until then. The more he thinks about it, the more annoyed he gets. This kind of disaster is seriously such a pain. After snatching the survivors from the monster's claws, Minato uses his magic to teleport them safely downstairs. There are 20 people in total this time, scattered all over the place, making the rescue mission incredibly difficult. But giving up isn't in Minato's vocabulary, so he rushes back upstairs to keep going. At the exact same time, inside a classroom, Jun is desperately trying to fend off the invading monsters. However, his mana pool is running dangerously low, and it doesn't take long before he is completely out of breath. Gritting his teeth, he mutters to himself, "Damn it, I can't keep this up much longer." And to make matters worse, they aren't just facing ordinary monsters, but high-ranking demon soldiers too. Jun and his lackeys are absolutely terrified, practically wetting themselves. Refusing to accept defeat, Jun screams in frustration, "That bastard Kusanagi took one of these down in a single blow. Why can't I do it?" Just as the words leave his mouth, a cold, mocking voice speaks up from behind him. "Because you're weak as hell." Jun's eyes instantly widen, and before he can even turn around to see who it is, a brilliant burst of flame erupts, instantly turning the demon soldier into ashes right before the three terrified boys' eyes. Only then does Jun get a clear look at his savior, and it is the absolute last person he ever wanted to see, Minato. Without saying a single word, Minato turns on his heel and walks away. Jun bites his lip so hard it almost bleeds. Not again. He has been saved by him yet again. Consumed by bitter humiliation, he runs after Minato and screams, "Hey, stop right there." Minato pauses in his tracks. Jun demands furiously, "Why did you save me?" You're supposed to hate my guts. So why? Why did you do it? Shrugging indifferently, Minato replies casually. No reason. I saved you simply because I could. That is all there is to it. Hearing those words, Jun's entire body begins to tremble. He bites his lip and mutters, You saved me. Just because you could? Is that seriously all I am to you? Unable to swallow this bitter pill, Jun snaps and screams at the top of his lungs, Quit messing with me. You're just a pathetic, weak loser. You couldn't even cast proper magic before, so how the hell did you get this strong so fast? Minato narrows his eyes at Jun and speaks coldly. Kusanagi Minato died in that traffic accident. I am someone else who reincarnated into his body. Hearing this, Jun refuses to believe it and screams, What? Do people just magically get stronger after cheating death? I am supposed to be stronger than you. So why? Why did I lose to a piece of trash like you? Strong? Minato scoffs coldly. Does a truly strong person ever waste their time oppressing the weak? He glares down at him and adds in a chilling voice. And no one who is truly strong gets off on humiliating those who are weaker than them. You have been completely blinded by your own arrogance, living in a delusion that you're strong. In reality, Jun doesn't even have the courage to think about fighting back anymore. Having said his piece, Minato walks away, leaving Jun standing there completely alone. Moments later, his legs give out, and he collapses to the ground in despair. Deep down, he knows he has just been running away from the ugly truth. That he hasn't gotten a single bit stronger since middle school. He has just been taking out all his stress and frustrations on those who couldn't fight back. Yet, he ended up being saved by Minato, the very person he looked down on as the weakest of the weak, and he just can't bring himself to accept it. His two lackeys are standing by awkwardly, completely at a loss for words. Once again, Minato had saved their skins. They wanted to ask Jun what their next move was, but he was in complete despair, totally broken. Tears streamed down his face non-stop, tears of bitter regret and sheer humiliation. Minato, of course, had no idea how they were doing. He was already rushing to the upper floors like a madman, slaughtering monsters to save everyone he could. The higher he went, the stronger the monsters became. Demon soldiers had already started appearing, but Minato didn't even flinch. Calmly, he unleashed his magic to strike a demon soldier, but the creature actually managed to dodge his first attack. Minato didn't let up. He immediately cast an even higher tier spell. With a deafening boom, an explosion of fire and smoke erupted instantly. The demon soldier was instantly engulfed in a sea of flames. Minato narrowed his eyes, staring at the pile of ashes in front of him, without showing a single shred of emotion. He silently pondered. The number of demon soldiers was rising, which meant the boss would be showing up very soon. With that in mind, Minato walked over to a group of students trembling in a corner and reassured them, Take it easy, you're safe now. Meanwhile, down below, Ryuji was yelling in utter frustration, That little brat, how dare he dump all this work on his senior like this? But even though he was complaining, he didn't stop casting spells for a single second to wipe out the beasts. There were just way too many monsters, and they were relentlessly hunting down the students. Ryuji did his best to protect them while fending off the creatures. He glanced back at the terrified students and shouted, I've got your backs. Just stay close and follow me. Seeing him look so incredibly cool, the students were completely filled with admiration. But honestly, Ryuji was just putting on a brave face. With monsters crawling out of every corner like this, how on earth were they going to make it out? Just as panic was starting to set in, Minato dropped down from the sky and said in his usual calm voice, Let me lend you a hand. Startled by the sudden voice, Ryuji jumped and yelled, Don't just pop out of thin air like that. You scared the life out of me. Minato couldn't care less about his reaction and casually replied, Start running the moment I clear these guys out. Ryuji hesitated, looking utterly confused. Wait, what? There's a whole army of them. How are you going to pull that off? We should probably find another way. But before the words could even leave his mouth, a brilliant wave of flames erupted, engulfing the horde in a massive inferno. The one who did it was, of course, none other than Minato. This breathtaking sight left every single student, including Ryuji, completely frozen in shock. Seeing them dazed, Minato immediately snapped them out of it. What are you guys just standing there for? Move it! Ryuji finally snapped out of his daze and quickly hurried the students away. As Ryuji ran, he looked back over his shoulder, only to see Minato casually waving his hand, unleashing bursts of magic that instantly obliterated any monster trying to chase them. Ryuji was left in absolute awe, thinking, Holy crap, this kid is a total monster. He is seriously on another level. Minato remained entirely focused on holding the line. Once the area was clear, he took a quick look around. Looks like everyone made it out. I should head back and do one more sweep. Meanwhile, in another corner of the academy, the instructor and a group of elite students with high magic reserves were desperately holding their ground, and Yuika was right there with them. But by this point, her magic was completely drained, and she stumbled, almost collapsing from exhaustion. Fortunately, Ruka caught her just in time. Ruka said coldly, "If you can't keep up, get inside. You're only holding everyone back." Yuika immediately shook her head, refusing to back down. "I can still fight. We don't have time to sit around and rest." Hearing her sister's stubborn response, Ruka could only frown in silence. She wanted to talk some sense into her, but she didn't know what to say, leaving her to watch helplessly as Yuika forced herself to channel magic and attack the monsters. Right at that moment, Ryuji rushed back with the other rescued students, announcing that everyone who had been trapped was now safe. The instructor praised him, saying, "Outstanding job, get them inside." Ryuji quickly handed the students over to someone else to escort. He rushed over to the Mizuha sisters to check on the situation. Ruka let out a helpless sigh. "We can't hold these things off much longer." Yuika looked around and asked anxiously, "Wait, where's Kusanagi?" Ryuji let out a chuckle and smirked. "That brat doesn't have a single scratch on him. He's alive, kicking, and absolutely tearing up the battlefield." "Really?" Hearing that, Yuika finally let out a massive sigh of relief. Without wasting any time, Ryuji joined the front lines, casting spells alongside everyone else while keeping up his usual chatter. "Man, that kid Kusanagi is really something else. With a powerhouse like him on our side, getting through this disaster is going to be a breeze." Yuika nodded in agreement. "I think so too, senior. With Kusanagi with us, we can definitely make it through this." But before the words could fully leave her mouth, the ground beneath them began to rumble violently, throwing everyone into a sudden panic. The instructor yelled at the top of his lungs, "Evacuate, everyone, fall back now." Right in front of them, an overwhelming horde of monsters had just emerged. And these weren't just low-level beasts, they were actual demon soldiers. Ryuji cried out in sheer panic, "There are way too many of them. We've got to get out of here." Hearing his warning, everyone bolted without hesitation. Ryuji and the Mizuha sisters were right behind them, running for their lives. Facing a massive horde like that head-on was pure suicide. But they hadn't run far when Yuika suddenly sensed something unusual and glanced back over her shoulder. The monsters behind them were already being torn apart by a sudden barrage of magic, with dark blood spraying everywhere like rain. Ryuji and the sisters stood frozen in disbelief. Out of nowhere, the magic police had finally arrived on the scene, led by Inspector Sugo, who looked incredibly tense and rushed. "Give the order immediately. Wipe them out quickly, and prioritize the safety of the students above all else." In no time, the other officers began their assault on the magic beasts ahead. Seeing this, the students behind them finally let out a sigh of relief. They were finally saved. As Sugo took down a magic beast, he shouted to reassure them, "Don't worry, everyone. We're going to get you out of here. Hurry up and evacuate as instructed." But Yuika suddenly stepped forward and suggested, "We'll help you guys fight." Sugo looked at her in surprise and said firmly, "You civilians need to evacuate to the gym right now." Before Yuika could say another word, Ruka quickly cut in, "We aren't civilians, we're mages." Sugo hesitated for a moment before finally nodding. "Fine, but just support us from the perimeter." To be honest, they were extremely short-staffed, so he had no choice but to rely on their help. Just look at how pathetic the police force has gotten. Meanwhile, Corinne was busy healing the other wounded students. Elsewhere, from the top of the academy building, Minato spotted the police cars pulling up. He let out a sigh of relief and muttered, "Finally, the police are here. I guess I'll leave the rest to them. But man, the police actually got here faster than the ground self-defense force. But then again, this is a national-level disaster. How could a country be this unprepared? Well, who knows? It's highly possible. This country has been sleeping on its past victories for way too long anyway." For now, he decided to just do what he could and check if any other students were still trapped. At that moment, from a helicopter hovering high above, a reporter witnessed the entire chaotic scene below and began broadcasting live. It appears the police have arrived, but the number of magic beasts shows absolutely no signs of slowing down. People all over the nation are eagerly waiting for the noble mages to show up. After all, crises like this require their intervention, and everyone is counting on their help. Every single citizen is holding on to the hope that the noble mages will arrive any second now. The reporter on the scene looked straight into the camera and pleaded, Please, save us, show yourselves, noble mages. Meanwhile, inside the private room of the Fuka family head, the old man listened to his butler's report and coldly responded, "Just ignore them." The butler hesitated, asking back, "Are you sure about that, sir?" The head of the Fuka clan snorted coldly. "A bunch of petty cops is more than enough to handle a minor disaster like this. There's no need for a noble mage like me to lift a finger." With that, he turned to walk away. Seeing this, the butler asked in confusion, "Where are you going, sir?" "To sleep," the Fuka family head replied coldly with a single word. The butler didn't dare to argue. He simply bowed respectfully and said, "Sleep well, sir." Back at the Magic Academy, Sugo was desperately trying to fend off the beasts, but the situation was rapidly deteriorating. Gritting his teeth, he glanced at his subordinate and asked, "Can we clear out the ones near the entrance?" The officer shook his head weakly. "It's no use. There are just too many of them." Sugo's expression instantly darkened. They were spawning much faster than he had anticipated, and they were running out of time to evacuate the civilians. Securing the outer perimeter was their top priority. Yet the backup still hadn't arrived. At this point, their only hope was the noble mages, but they couldn't even get a hold of them. The more he thought about it, the more furious Sugo became. He couldn't help but roar, "Damn it! Where the hell are those lazy bastards when we actually need them? They're completely useless when it matters, forcing us to rely on students who haven't even graduated yet. It just goes to show how pathetic Japan's military strength has become." Sugo scowled deeply. He had read about this before. There was a damn good reason why this was called a natural disaster. Did the people of Japan really have to go through this in the past? If the boss shows up right now, we're all dead meat. And of course, speak of the devil. The ground trembled violently once again, striking fear into everyone's hearts. Sugo bit his lip so hard it almost bled. No way. Is that demon general really the boss? Yuika's face paled as well. That monster was incredibly rare and almost never spawned in this area. And only a noble mage would have the power to take it down. Yuika knew all too well that they needed magic of at least level 5 to defeat it, but absolutely no one here could cast anything that powerful. While everyone was panicking, a massive burst of brilliant flames suddenly blasted toward them. Without a second thought, Ruka threw herself in front of Yuika to shield her. Ruka collapsed right in front of Yuika, leaving her completely devastated and terrified. On the ground, Ruka's body was trembling uncontrollably. She looked up weakly and gasped, "Run, Yuika!" But Yuika just sat there frozen, her legs refusing to move as the crowd around them fled in sheer panic. Yuika clung tightly to Ruka, her tear-filled eyes desperate and begging for a miracle. Sugo and the magic police did everything they could to hold the line, but they were simply no match for the beast. Even Ryuji was now completely exhausted, unable to take another step. But right before their eyes, a towering figure slowly emerged from the blazing inferno. At the sight of it, despair washed over everyone. It seemed they had finally accepted their fate. They were going to die here today. Yuika refused to let go of Ruka, screaming out at the top of her lungs, "Kusanagi! Please, save us! Kusanagi!" The blazing flames are roaring fiercely, rushing straight toward everyone. In pure despair, Yuika screams, "Minato, the heat is getting too close." The monster is also closing in, but suddenly, it stops in its tracks. It sees something blocking its path. A massive surge of magic power rains down from the sky, striking the beast. At that exact moment, a figure appears right in front of Yuika. It is Minato. With a serious look, he says, "Sorry I'm late. Kept you waiting, didn't I?" Seeing him brings instant relief to Yuika, but Ruka is in terrible shape, and tears start streaming down her face again. She cries out, "Kusanagi, she is." Minato steps over to check on her and finally says, "She is fine. She just lost consciousness." With that, he places his hand on her and begins healing. Still anxious, Yuika silently lowers her head and waits. Minato continues to heal Ruka, and after a while, he grits his teeth and stands up. Seeing this, Yuika is startled and calls out to him. Minato glances at her and calmly says, "I will take care of this, boss." Yuika is stunned for a second, but quickly nods and replies, "All right." Immediately, a protective barrier of magic envelops the entire area. Startled, Yuika gasps, "What is this?" Ruka's wounds are also healing at an unbelievable speed. The more Yuika watches, the more astonished she becomes. Feeling this magic for the first time, the other students are completely shocked. Karine steps out from the building, and her eyes go wide at the sight. Is this Tier 3 holy healing magic? Even she cannot use it, so who on earth could? She quickly runs over to Shogo and asks worriedly, "Senior, are you all right?" Shogo shakes his head slightly and replies, "I am fine. I just pushed myself a little too hard." Karine helps him stand up, then glances around and asks, "What is going on here?" Shogo shakes his head helplessly. "I am not sure either, but we have to protect the citizens until our very last breath." Panic-stricken, Karin hesitates before speaking up. "But that is too dangerous. You could lose your life out there, Senior." Biting his lip hard, Shogo replies with determination, "But if we do nothing, every single citizen here is going to die." Karine knows this, but she still argues out of worry. "This is already impossible. In the end, everyone is going to. Our entire force has already fallen." Just as she says, a section of the academy is engulfed in a sea of fire, and the magic police have all been wiped out. Shogo bites his lip, his eyes burning with anger. Not a single person from the defense force or the noble mages has shown up. There is nothing we can do anymore. Even the magic police have given up, and the battle against the magical beasts is getting worse by the second. Smoke and flames surge even more violently. The reporters at the scene are thrown into a complete panic. This can't be. Even the police have fallen. Is this really the end for us? People watching the live broadcast are also consumed by anxiety, everyone on the edge of their seats. But back at the scene, Minato steps forward alone toward the monster. Witnessing this, Karin gasps in shock. A student is walking straight toward those beasts. Is he trying to get himself killed? Shogo is just as panicked. He desperately shouts, "Hey, get away from there right now." Unfortunately, his words do not reach Minato at all. He soon stands face to face with the monster. Minato lets out a cold snort and says, "You seem to think you can just run wild, don't you?" The monster narrows its eyes at him, repeatedly muttering, "Kill, kill." The terrifying guttural sound echoes through the entire area. This throws the students into utter panic, and even Shogo and Karin are terrified, as the overwhelming pressure radiating from the beast crushes everyone's spirits. Right at that moment, an earth-shattering explosion erupts. Minato coldly orders, "Shut your mouth." Hit by his attack, the monster throws its head back and roars in fury, prompting the lower-tier beasts to immediately charge at him. Minato frowns slightly, lost in thought. When facing the world's worst natural disaster, he went all out. But this time, he has to hold back a bit for the sake of the people around him. While Minato is deep in thought, a wild surge of lightning magic charges straight at him. In the blink of an eye, he is completely engulfed in blinding lightning. Seeing this, Shogo panics. Is he dead? Everyone around anxiously watches to see if Minato is still alive. While they are in a state of panic, a blinding light of magic erupts, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. This magic is coming right from Minato's hand. The sparks of magic dance through the air, rapidly obliterating the magical beasts. Witnessing this, Shogo is absolutely dumbfounded. What is that? Who on earth is that student? It is not just them. The reporters at the scene have also noticed Minato's sudden intervention. However, they cannot see his face. The cameraman tries to move closer to get a better look, but his path is blocked by a magic attack, preventing him from getting closer. The one who intervened is Yuika. Since Minato has worked so hard to hide his true power, this will allow him to fight without any distractions. Meanwhile, in the midst of battle, dozens of magic beams streaming from both of Minato's hands are dancing continuously in the air. Everywhere the magic passes, the beasts collapse. This spectacle leaves the inexperienced students utterly shell-shocked. Unbelievable. Everyone gasped in shock. He is absolutely insane. Are we actually going to survive this? He can really do it. But they did not have time to stand around daydreaming. Low-level beasts were still crawling everywhere, but thankfully, a few people could still use magic to clear them out. Sugo blasted a beast while screaming at the crowd, "We cannot just stand here. There must be something we can do to back him up." Locked in combat with the boss, Minato overheard this and could not help but smirk. "Hey, I guess the cops in this era are not half bad." With a wave of his hand, he detonated another wave of magic. Absolutely furious, the boss quickly began summoning a massive spell. Sugo's eyes widened in sheer terror. Level 6 magic? That is on par with the noble mages. It was over. There was nothing they could do. The beast unleashed a tier 6 spell, Fire Dragon Roar, sending a blinding wave of smoke and flames roaring into the sky. The students stood frozen in absolute terror, while the reporters on the scene sank into utter despair. Sugo watched helplessly as the towering inferno rushed toward them. so blindingly bright it threatened to consume everything in its path. The flames burned with a terrifying blood-red glow. Feeling completely helpless, even Karen could do nothing but pray to the gods for a miracle. Sugo realized that no matter how strong Minato was, there was no way he could overpower a monster like that. Survival was impossible. But amidst the panic, Yuika was the sole person who kept her faith in Minato. She knew he could pull through. If anyone could do it, it was Minato. He would survive this and save every single one of them. Meanwhile, Minato calmly sized up the demon general. Sure, the guy was huge, but the bigger they are, the slower they move. Since this demon general was going all out with level 6 magic, holding back his own power would just be a waste of time, would it not? Man, I really did not want to do this, but I guess I do not have a choice, Minato muttered. He stretched out his hand and prepared to cast 2 spells simultaneously. Instantly, a devastating wave of mana erupted from his body. Yuika stared in awe as a mountain of magical energy swirled right in front of her. Her eyes widened in utter shock, which quickly turned into pure relief. Before everyone's stunned eyes, a massive serpent, made entirely of water magic, materialized. Sugo's jaw dropped. Is that composite magic? At that moment, the demon general's fire dragon came hurtling toward them. But Minato's water serpent did not back down, charging straight into the beast. With a deafening boom, the 2 titanic forces clashed. Fire and water wrapped around each other in a fierce, chaotic struggle for dominance. Down below, the demon general frantically pumped more mana into his spell, chanting in a raspy, guttural voice, "Slaughter, humans, die." In an instant, the fire dragon surged, growing even larger as it surged forward with overwhelming force. Minato just sneered at the display. With a flick of his wrist, his giant water serpent lunged at the fire dragon, completely obliterating it in the blink of an eye. Without slowing down, the water serpent tore through the battlefield, instantly closing the distance to the demon general. The massive demon was engulfed by the raging torrent. Just before it dissolved into nothingness, it gasped out its final words. But why? Minato watched it turn to ash without a hint of emotion. He scoffed. Maybe you should have practiced more. Honestly, Minato expected a bit more of a challenge. He figured a demon general would put up a better fight, but it turned out to be incredibly weak. With the boss dead, the dark clouds parted, and clear skies returned to the Magic Academy. Minato looked up and smiled at the sunlight. It looked like taking out the boss put an end to the calamity. At the very least, he could finally enjoy some rare, quiet peace. Only then did the students finally snap out of their daze. They were actually saved. In an instant, the entire crowd erupted into wild cheers, celebrating their narrow escape from the jaws of death. Even the reporters on the scene could not hold back, weeping tears of pure joy. Karin let out a deep, relieved sigh. They were safe, and the nightmare was finally over. Meanwhile, Sugo stood frozen in utter shock. He could not believe a mere student like Minato had just single-handedly obliterated a demon general. That was a monster even noble mages would struggle to defeat, yet this kid did it effortlessly. Who on earth was he? But before he could think any further, his knees buckled and he collapsed to the ground. He clicked his tongue, realizing his body had completely given out on him. Over on the other side, Minato walked up to Yuika and gave her a warm smile. "See? I told you I had this." Yuika looked up at him, her eyes glistening with tears. "I knew you could do it. I never doubted you. Thank you, Minato." "Don't sweat it," Minato chuckled, shaking his head. But before they could say another word, a massive crowd of students came charging right toward them. Minato flinched in surprise. Before he could even react, he was completely surrounded by a mob of screaming students, showering him with endless praise. He let out a defeated sigh. So much for keeping a low profile. He could already see his future looking just as gloomy as that storm sky they just cleared. Seeing his miserable expression, Yuika could not help but giggle. "Ah, you look like you were having a terrible time." By the next day, the news was absolutely flooded with reports about the academy crisis, specifically focusing on the mysterious student who single-handedly saved the day. But of course, everyone at the academy knew exactly who that mystery hero really was. Ever since the natural disaster, Minato found himself surrounded by more and more people. Every time he showed up to class, they would crowd around him, badgering him with endless questions, which was getting super annoying. Of course, not everyone was thrilled. Some jealous students started talking trash behind his back, muttering, "Looks like someone got his boots licked, and now he's acting all high and mighty. There's no way a regular student like him could actually be that strong." Just like that, the classroom erupted into a massive argument, splitting the students into two camps. One side completely supported Minato, while the other refused to believe a single thing about him. Taking advantage of the chaos, Minato slipped out of the room. Honestly, he was just completely exhausted by all the drama. Right then, Yuika popped up next to him and teased, "Rough day, huh?" Minato let out a cold sigh and groaned, "Don't even start." Giggling, Yuika casually kept teasing him. "Well, you're the hero who saved everyone, so I guess you'll just have to deal with it." Minato chose to ignore that and change the subject. "Anyway, you got transferred to S-class too, right?" She gave a soft nod. Yuika shrugged and replied, "It's probably just because of our mock battle and that whole incident." Minato frowned slightly, asking with curiosity, "You don't seem too happy about it." Hearing this, Yuika quickly looked away, pouting as she muttered, "Of course I am. I mean, at least a certain someone will be there with me." Minato didn't catch her drift and quickly moved on, asking, "By the way, how is Ruka doing?" Yuika smiled warmly and replied, "She's doing great. In fact, we've actually gotten a lot closer lately." Yuika was genuinely thrilled about this change. "And it's all thanks to you, Minato." With sparkling eyes, she looked at him and gave a heartfelt, genuine smile, saying, "Thank you so much. Meeting you here is honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me." Hearing this, Minato got a bit flustered and flicked her on the forehead, leaving Yuika rubbing her head in confusion. "Ow! What was that for?" Yuika whined. Minato pouted and muttered, saying, "Thank you once is enough. Do you have to keep repeating it?" With that, he turned around and walked away. Yuika watched him walk away and smiled softly. It seemed her heart had officially skipped a beat for him. Meanwhile, over in the Prime Minister's office, a meeting was underway with all the top brass present, and the Prime Minister was busy making call after call. After a while, he finally hung up and announced, "With that, our emergency calls with the other nations are officially wrapped up." One of the officials asked anxiously, "Sir, finding the root cause of this second disaster is going to be incredibly difficult, isn't it?" The Prime Minister nodded solemnly and replied, "Every nation is doing everything they can to find a solution. But right now, the biggest topic is the rumor about the student who took down the final boss." The officials kept discussing the disaster and Minato's mind-blowing feat of taking down the demon general. Meanwhile, back at the Magic Academy, Minato was called up to the rooftop once again. Waiting for him were Ruka, Ryuji, and Yuika. The four of them just stood there, staring at one another in a tense, heavy silence. After a long pause, Ruka finally broke the silence and said, "Kusanagi, I have a massive favor to ask. Please, make me your apprentice." As she made this request, her eyes were burning with pure determination. To understand why, we have to go back to a few days ago, when the two sisters were sitting outside the Mizuha family estate. After sitting in silence for quite a while, Ruka suddenly spoke up. About this disaster. Her sudden voice made Yuika jump slightly. Ignoring her reaction, Ruka calmly continued, "It seems Kusanagi was the one who actually stopped the disaster, wasn't he?" Hearing this, Yuika quickly nodded and replied, "Yes, Kusanagi defeated the boss demon general using level 4 composite magic." Ruka looked at her in absolute disbelief. "Did you just say level 4 composite magic? That's a level of spell casting that even elite mages can't pull off. Do you realize that?" "I'm serious. It's the absolute truth," Yuika insisted, nodding firmly. Seeing her sister's dead serious expression, Ruka hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Then it must be true. After all, my little Yuika would never lie to me." Yuika was caught off guard by this and asked in surprise, "Wait, why are you so sure I wouldn't lie to you?" Ruka chuckled softly and replied in a warm, relaxed tone, "Because you've always been such a good, obedient girl. I always knew a sweet girl like you could never be a useless mage. But I guess I was way too harsh and relied on violence too much." Hearing her sister admit this, Yuika felt a wave of sadness, but a second later, she jumped to her feet and declared with all her might, "I promise I will get stronger so you never have to worry about me again. So please, just believe in me." At that moment, Yuika was more determined than she had ever been in her life. Her outburst caught Ruka completely off guard, but a gentle smile soon spread across her face. "You really have grown up, haven't you? Come here, Yuika." A spark of pure joy lit up Yuika's eyes as she stepped closer. Ruka fell silent again, her mind drifting back to Minato. His strength was simply terrifying. It was far beyond anything a mere student should possess. He might even be stronger than her own father. With that thought, Ruka looked up at her sister and said, "I need you to do me a favor." Snapping back to the present on the rooftop, Ruka stood silently, holding her breath as she waited for Minato's reply. She knew deep down that if she kept going down her current path, she would only ever max out as a high-level mage. To break past her limits and get truly strong, she absolutely needed Minato's help. Taking a deep breath, Ruka spoke from the bottom of her heart. "I'm so sorry for insulting you and looking down on you before. Please, accept my sincerest apologies." She admitted she knew exactly how selfish and unreasonable her request was. Even so, she was willing to swallow her pride and beg for his guidance. Her voice carried a heavy, desperate plea. She bowed her head low and whispered, "Please, allow me to." But before she could even finish her sentence, Minato coldly cut her off. "Sure." His response was so sudden and casual that Ruka froze, completely unable to process it. Seeing her stunned face, Minato repeated himself once more. "I said I would take you on as my apprentice." Ruka was still a bit dazed, asking skeptically, "Why now?" Then it was Minato's turn to be confused. He spoke up. "Why ask such a weird question? You're the one who wanted this in the first place." Ruka quickly replied, "That's true, but I've done so many horrible things to you." Shrugging indifferently, Minato casually replied, "Well, you already apologized, so I forgive you. Besides, you wanted me to accept your apology, right? That's all there is to it." Ruka was stunned. Was his answer really that casual? Right then, Rui quickly chimed in, "Hey, then count me in too." Minato chose not to comment. Pouting, he agreed, "Fine, teaching one or two more people is fine, I guess." Seeing that Ruka was still bewildered, Rika explained, "That's just the kind of person he is." Ruka narrowed her eyes at Minato, thinking to herself, "You really are a strange kid." A little while later, in a classroom at the Magic Academy, Minato and Yuika found themselves summoned there for some unknown reason. Standing before them were Inspector Sugo and Sergeant Karin, who were currently bowing to Minato. They sincerely said, "First, please let us thank you. If it weren't for you, both the civilians and all of us probably would have been wiped out." Minato couldn't help but feel exasperated. "You guys have been thanking me since the interrogation. I think that's more than enough. Is there something else?" Sugo nodded slightly and replied, "The investigation into the disaster has ended, but there are still a few things that have caught our attention." Minato couldn't help but ask in surprise, "A few things that caught your attention?" Sugo didn't hide his intentions, stating his purpose. "Kusanagi, you awakened your magic abilities after being involved in a traffic accident, is that right? Everyone around you testified to the same thing, so there's probably no mistake there. But during our investigation, I heard some people say that after the accident, you were like a completely different person." Hearing this, Minato froze, a look of wariness flashing in his eyes. Sugo didn't notice and continued, "Your personality changed, and your power became abnormally strong, or even strong enough to defeat a demon general." The more he spoke, the more confused everyone in the room became. Yuika couldn't help but ask in frustration, "Wait a minute, what are you trying to say?" Sugo seemed to realize he had overstepped, frowning as he muttered, "Let's change the question then. Do you know who the Dark Sorcerer is?" Both Minato and Yuika were stunned. What did this have to do with the Dark Sorcerer? Sugo slowly explained. "He's a mage who defeated all the stray magic beasts around here and helped citizens under the cover of night. This video has been going viral all over the internet. Haven't you seen it?" With that, he showed the video to the two of them. Karin, standing beside him, seemed to realize something, but Yuika didn't. Frowning, she asked, "What does this have to do with Kusanagi?" Sugo calmly replied, "Because these two share quite a few similarities in both build and age." He mentioned that the Dark Sorcerer is rumored to be quite a famous mage, but the magic doesn't match. Not to mention, the time he started active duty perfectly aligns with when Minato was discharged from the hospital. The instructor sitting nearby heard Sugo's words, his face turning pale with worry, seemingly extremely anxious. Karin remained silent, not uttering a word, while Sugo kept rambling on. "Using magic in the city without a license is illegal. Since this has attracted too much public attention, the police had no choice but to step in." Hearing that he would be severely punished, Yuika glanced at Minato, her face filled with worry. Sugo also stared intently at him, speaking coldly, "If you admit to everything, we promise to do everything we can to lighten your sentence. So, please answer honestly. Are you the Dark Sorcerer?" "It's not me." Minato confidently shook his head in denial. Hearing this, Sugo smiled, replying cheerfully, I see, so you're not him, huh? That's good then. Right after that, Sugo and Karin stood up to say goodbye. Thank you for your time, everyone. We'll be leaving now. The two of them left.